Officer Torch, I have the right to travel. I do not have to show you my identification, nor do I need a driver's license. I have the right to travel. Fuck you, officer.
Oh my god.
What's your response when you run into people like that?
Just pure fucking agony inside my brain. You're talking about like the sovereign citizens?
Yeah, the people that, just give you guys a hard time.
I don't know, dude. They're just really annoying. Like, because most of the time you stop them for something dumb, like, hey, like you ran that stop sign, and then they start giving you a hard time. Where in reality, it would have been a stop where you wouldn't have even given a shit. Like, hand your ID, go back, and then be like, hey, dude, don't do that again. Or
Yeah.
here's your $90 ticket. Like, have a good day. But instead, they make this into this huge ordeal. Um,
Oh yeah, I bet it's the most
typically,
annoying
just you
thing
got to
ever.
find a way to make it work. Typically, I try to explain to people what's going to happen if they don't identify themselves and the reasons why they have to.
Yeah.
I mean, if in like the state of Idaho, you getting a driver's license is implied consent, and that meaning if you're pulled over, you've by you having a driver's license, you've implied consent that you will give it to an officer um, lawfully when you're pulled over because you're required to by law.
Yeah.
So there is none of that. I'm traveling. So you just kind of dance around that circle with the guy. I'm sure you've seen a billion YouTube videos. And then like the last hurrah that we have is like, all right, well, you're resisting obstructing, so I'm gonna smash your window and pull you out.
Yeah.
But we try
I've
not to
seen
do it.
those videos, man, where the cops like, get out of your car. I'm a sovereign citizen. I have the right to travel. Out of your car, or I am busting this one. I am a and then he just puts his hand on like the top of the window and just rips it open, dude. I was like, oh my god.
It's yeah, that stuff's funny. Oh, fuck, I lost my train of thought. I have a story about a window smash, but there's something else I was going to say too. Um, fuck, I need to drink more.
Well, I wanted to get into the videos a little bit because, in my opinion, I mean, don't get me wrong, there's bad apples everywhere, but I mean, in any organization, but the people that look at these videos, I don't think really take into consideration all the factors. For example, I watched a Facebook video, and I'll run the situation by you, but I mean, I have my opinion. It's the first time I don't even remember. I don't comment. Like, I never leave comments, but like, I watched the video and thought the cops were actually, I didn't see anything wrong with what they did. And I thought they actually handled it pretty well. The officer even made sure to mention that he does completely respect like his Second Amendment right, but they're just, and like he offered a recommendation. Anyways, I'll jump into it. So this was in Florida. I guess there's like some like law where you can open carry if you're traveling to, or if you're fishing, hunting, or camping, or you're traveling to such an event or back from such an event. It was something along those lines. So this guy
Right.
goes, he's going fishing and he's like open carrying, like, I don't remember everything. He had like multiple firearms. He's just toting it to a public. It's like on the side of a road. He's fishing off a bridge, you know. People call like, hey, this dude's got a bunch of guns and he's just fishing on the side of the road. Like, can y'all go check it out? And then so cop arrives and he's like, hey, do you have a firearm on you or something like that? And he's like, yes, I do. And it is allowed, but I'm not going to answer any further questions. And the officer is like, okay, well, as of right now, you're detained. You understand that? And he's like, yes. He's like, okay. Well, I'm going to wait for my other unit to get here and we're going to go ahead and search. He's like, okay, but I do not consent to any search or seizure. And he's like, okay, that's fine. Yeah, but I mean, they still did it. And so, cops get there and they ask him if he has a concealed carry permit. And he said no original, or he didn't say no. Um, no, he didn't have a concealed carry permit, but he had some other kind of permit. But he said no because he thought he was talking about the concealed carry permit. So of course the officer's like, well, okay, so you're open carrying, but you're also concealed carrying this pistol, which is not okay. And then the guy's like, well, I have a concealed carry permit. He's like, wait, you do? Well, why didn't you say that? And the guy's like, because I don't have to. It's like, dude, and so they start searching They start searching the guy, just kind of like taking out his wallet. They just wanted to verify that he had his concealed carry permit. They went back and they checked the law that he cited them on. He was detained the entire time. He kept saying, "I don't consent to any search or seizure." In my opinion, the way the guy used his rights was actually very polite, and the way the officers handled themselves was very nice. It was the comments that I was just like, really? Like, no one sees that this was a positive interaction? And, so like they verify he's got the concealed carry permit, and then the officer states, "Hey, listen, this isn't like, I'm not telling you have to do this or anything, but just just like some common sense, just like a suggestion. If you're coming here, like I carry off duty too, and I completely support your Second Amendment right. But I still wear a jacket over mine. I don't want people to know I'm carrying. I don't want them to see that." And he's like, "Okay." And then he makes this video and he posts it and he tries to make it out like the cops just did this horrible thing to him. And then everyone in the comments is like, "Man, screw the police, dude. Those cops are criminals, bro. Like they don't respect his rights. He was so polite, man." And I'm like, "Y'all, he didn't like arrest. They're totally correct me if I'm wrong, but you're totally allowed to just detain somebody while you figure out what's going on." And then they released him once they figured out that he was in the clear. And so it was like, what are you guys flipping your lids over, man? Like that was a positive interact. Like you want your police to not be able to detain people and figure out what's going on? Like, you have any idea how bad the streets are going to be if they can't do that? you know? So
Yeah.
it's unbelievable, man. But I was curious on what you think. Maybe I'm wrong and there's something the cop did that was kind of offbeat there. I don't know.
Well, I mean, it sounds pretty routine. So a lot of times, I mean, like most of the stuff we do is just detain people on suspicion of a crime, figure out whether there is or isn't a crime, and then decide what we're going to do from there.
Yeah.
I find that I have a lot of success with people if I'm as articulate as I can be as to exactly what I'm doing. I'm not like trying to give away like anything that would jeopardize my safety as an officer, but to try to be clairvoyant. Because before I even considered being a cop, I was pretty anti-cop for a while. Not
Really?
in the same way as people, in a different way. And actually, it was on the topic of guns. I was like so far right that I didn't like cops because I thought they're idiots and didn't know the gun laws. But I digress. Anyways, so a couple things on that. The first one would be I think that our nation has gotten to the point, and not everywhere. I'm blessed enough to work in an area where this is not as big of a thing as it is in some other spots. But if people see a gun, they think a crime has been committed, which is
Yeah.
so completely far from the actual truth. I mean, there's so many states where you can have a gun out and not be committing a crime. Two, I mean, it's like, hey, dude, I understand people were telling me you have a gun. I need to, like, right now you're detained. I need to make sure you don't have one. And he's like, okay, that's fine, but I'm not telling you who I am, and you're not allowed to pat search me. I'm like, or you're not allowed to search me. In that case, I'm lawfully allowed to pat search the guy, which is I just can't go into pockets because I have reasonable suspicion to believe that there could potentially be a crime being committed. Yeah, I don't know anything about the Florida law, but yeah, if it's like to and from hunting or fishing and while hunting and fishing,
Yeah.
for the most part, like you could potentially, I don't know, check their fishing license. I don't know if that's attached to their concealed carry, but typically if you can just figure out who that person is, like a lot of times they'll just be like, okay, well, you won't give me your ID. What's your name? And then they'll tell me their name, date of birth, and I'll run over the air to dispatch, and they'll be able to pull up everything just from first name, middle initial, last name, date of birth.
Okay. Yeah.
So then that's a pretty like non-intrusive way of doing things, and I've done that a lot. And like they don't want to give me their ID, that's fine. I'll just at least figure out who you are, and then dispatch can tell me if they're like a valid driver, if they have warrants. I mean, if they're doing what they're supposed to be or not. So,
Okay.
it sounds like they're on their game. It's just, it legitimately comes down to you walk up there, is that dude who's walking that's looking at me walking up to him. Does he immediately think, oh, that guy's a fucking asshole, I'm gonna be a dick to him?
Yeah.
Like, it's just the nature of the beast. Like, are you gonna accidentally bump into someone's shopping cart at Costco and they're gonna be like, hey, watch it, dick? Or are they gonna be
Oh my
polite?
gosh.
Oh man, like I'm sorry. And they're like, oh, it's okay. It's the same thing.
It's gotta, yeah, man. Because like the way I would view it from my perspective, and I've never been on a deployment or anything, but it would seem similar to going out on patrols and just waiting to get hit by an IED. Like you're just constantly waiting to be ambushed. And that's gotta suck.
I don't think my mindset's to that extent. That's pretty fucking
No?
extreme. But yeah. So here's kind of a good story on that topic. Like everyone who's doing the job that is good at the job has that rare trait where they're okay with, like, part of them is somewhat okay with being in harm's way. I don't know if that sounds like it might be something you relate with, where you're just kind of like, ah, fuck it. Like if I get shot at, do whatever I can to not let that happen and stop it. But at the end of the day, like I can't control everything and fuck it and I'll react to it.
Yeah.
Now,
Well,
if that situation comes, I'm gonna have to deal with it. And there was a trainee. We're on our way to a homicide. There's a trainee, and so we get word that did get shot in the face. We're rolling up. Suspects at large, armed with a gun, and so I'm rolling up. I'm by myself. Trainer gets out with the trainee. He's like, okay. So there's a guy here. We don't know where he is. He has a gun. He just shot somebody. If you see him with a gun, fucking kill him. And I think that so that this trainee ended up washing out. And I mean, he did a good job on the call and was professional the whole time. But I think the perception of like, oh, this is actually real. This isn't just like I have this because that's what cops wear on their hip. This is a real tool that gets used.
yeah.
Really fucked with them.
Yeah.
But other people, I guess, can just block it out.
Well, it's funny you say that because, while I haven't been on deployments, of course, people in my platoon had, and that seemed to be like the kind of the mindset you get to eventually is like, this isn't there, we're going to mitigate this danger as much as we can, but, we're not going to sit here and just stress about things that we can't control, so I kind of get what you're saying. But I was just curious, like shifting gears a little bit. I don't want to get into I do want to get into tactics and strategies on this stuff, but I wouldn't want to give any information away to people that, you know, may use it. But maybe in regards to active shooting, I was curious if a teacher were listening to this, or maybe a high school student or something, what could they do that would make it the most difficult for an active shooter to be successful and enhance the police officer's ability to accomplish the mission?
Well, dude, that's such a complicated question because there's so many things. Like you heard about the JROTC kids that covered their classmates in bulletproof blankets and then attacked the guy,
I
right?
didn't hear about that actually. That's
Like,
crazy.
I'm not gonna say, hey, students, like, don't be a bunch of pussies and go fucking attack the guy with a gun because that's pretty outlandish. But it would make our job easier if he's
Yeah.
distracted.
But
Um,
okay, so realistic though, like what is it? Just barricade? Just like close the door, throw a thumbs up if you see an officer, letting them know there's no one in there, or you know.
yeah, well, this is something I think actually does happen. So the training that we've done is like alarm goes off, every single person in that school, like student wise at least, gets in the first building they see, whether they're by themselves or with other people, and they barricade the door and hide. And there's, I mean, I've in some drills, there's been times where like a kid, he gets throws himself into like a janitor's closet or some classroom that isn't like an auxiliary classroom isn't used, and he's by himself. So it's
Yeah.
like you got to do your best. There are all the teachers and all the staff. They like do a real quick round to make sure everything's right. But if it's not feasible, they also
Yeah.
barricade themselves and hide. And then their protocol is do not open the door ever. Even if we say police, they're not supposed to open the door in fear of like, oh, the bad guy's going to say that. So
Yeah.
there, I guess they have like a special clearing code word that I'm not special enough to know. So when it's all said and done, that code word will get like the police department knows it, like the brass. However,
Yeah.
just an officer wouldn't.
But he would if he were about to make that breach. Like they might send that to him so that he knows.
Yeah.
Like,
So if we're at that point where it's like, okay, now start opening up doors, then it's like, okay, say like banana or whatever the safe word is.
yeah.
Like knock, knock, scratch.
Now that being said, I know you have responded to a situation like that, but have you responded specifically to a school active shooter?
No,
Oh,
no.
okay.
So uh, just to clarify, the active shooter situation that I went to was at a mall, and it was out of my county. And I got there and just like stood around for 2 hours until I went back to my county.
Oh,
I was not involved. I was there after the fact.
that
It's
doesn't
just an
sound too
extra
fun.
body. Yeah, I didn't get
Yeah.
to do any cool stuff.
Yeah.
Anyways, yeah, so we do a lot of drills, and they're all at schools. We haven't done anything in like a mall or a Walmart or anything of that nature. And schools suck to clear, but they're also a way better option than like for a Walmart where there's nowhere to hide or barricade yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, so I guess going back to what you're saying, people in the classroom, if they can get on the phone with dispatch and start giving actual live updates, that's huge. I mean, there's the
Yeah.
huge time delay from when little Johnny says, I just heard gunshots outside my door. I'm at room 315, to it getting relayed to dispatch, to getting relayed to either the actual command that's set up to myself, just depending on how the situation is set up, whether that goes through the incident command or if dispatch is still relaying information direct. Probably 10-15 seconds, so it's still pretty good, but there's a delay.
Yeah.
But it's like, okay, I kind of have an idea as to what to do and where to go, rather than me guessing at this point. Because like I told you earlier, and for anybody who wants to know, our whole mission, I guess, when we get there, is you show up, first person on scene is incident command until incident command is
now real quick before we continue into that, um, is that cool to dig into? You know, I wouldn't want someone to maybe.
Oh no, yeah, that's fine. It's readily available.
Oh, okay. Then go, yeah, my bad. Go on. I just I didn't want to give the criminals, the juicy details that they might want, But
Well, our tactic is overwhelming force. If the dude wants a gunfight, he's going to get it, and eventually we'll have enough people to beat him.
now that's interesting because police officers, at least from my observation, seem to train more in, ones and pairs and maybe like four. But would you say that you guys train, like, say you had an organized criminal, or let me flip that, a criminal organization, like, they had 20 dudes there and they're all in different positions, they like they've actually organized this a bit. Would that be you guys, or would you call someone in maybe that is a little bit more specialized in dealing with a bigger threat like that?
No, we do it, but we wouldn't do it alone. Just since in Idaho, the area that we're at, there is a lot of cops, but the number per agency on duty at once isn't crazy vast. So
Okay.
yeah, us with
So
the
you could pull
sheriffs,
together.
and then it would be all the police force, because we have like 5 different police departments in the county. And then it would be the next county over that's like 15 miles over. They'd send a bunch of people plus state. Like we could get probably 200 cops there, and we could get 40 cops there probably within 15 minutes, and then we could get 200 there within an hour and a half.
That's actually really good timing. And I mean, I don't know in comparison how that is to other departments, but that seems like a pretty good response time.
Well, it's good. It's so like I tell people, our emergency response time is pretty good when it comes to like crazy stuff. Um, and that's like stuff where it doesn't matter who's going, we just need bodies. But when it comes to like other things like crashes, yeah, it could take us 25 minutes to get there.
Yeah. Now, before you guys make the move,
Every go priority.
okay. So, all right. So in the infantry, we got some rules of thumb. One of the rule of thumbs is we only fight if we have 3-1 odds, meaning like, I mean, we will if we have to, but otherwise we like to be 3 times the size of whatever enemy force it is that we're coming into contact with. Do you guys have a similar policy, or is
Kind
it
of.
just get everybody there and
No,
make it happen?
kind of. If like if there's like a building alarm or something that isn't active people dying, then it's actually against our policy to even go into a building without at least a second. So I'm responding to an in progress burglary or a burglar alarm or something of that nature. We're going to clear the house, but I'm going to wait for my secondary officer to get there before we go. But an active shooter, there is none of that. You're the first one there, and you will deal with the threat until back. Like you're going to kill the guy by yourself or die trying or as you're trying to get that task done, more officers show up and you got more bodies to work with. Because we've
Yeah.
seen way too many fuck ups from officers in the past, including Columbine, which was such a fucking tragic event because officers were there very quickly and they stood around. They're like, "Oh, we need SWAT," and that's why this policy was made. It's like, no, you fucking don't. You will go in there, you will solve the problem, because if we stand around any longer, more people will die. And the saying behind our pretty much our initial mission and our goal is to stop the killing and then stop the dying by whatever means necessary.
And self-preservation is not a factor, as you said, right?
Yeah. And so the priorities of life is something that gets taught a lot. Priorities of life in law enforcement is innocent bystanders, then the specific victim of the crime, then officers, then the suspect. So you got to think about the totality of what you're doing. But yeah, like you think about Black Hawk Down when Randy Shugart and Gary Gordon went down there to save Mike Durant. They're like, "Hey, where's the rescue team?" He's like, "We're it." Like that's kind of the same feeling. Go up at an active shooter at a school. It's like I'm the dude, and I feel bad because there's some counties in northern Idaho and in a lot of other states, like especially rural ones. You think like Langmeyer, whatever the hell that fucking show's called, and some cops that I know really well. Like they are the fucking SWAT team. Like if something goes down, they go in the back of their car, put on a helmet, a vest, and they deal with it by themselves.
So, like you said, sometimes you got to be the police, right?
Yeah. And they can call states available, but they're pretty readily available for us. But in the rural areas, yeah, they're not fucking around. One of the gals at the academy was she worked in the same county where they found that girl who was murdered by her boyfriend. Then he like went running and it was like a manhunt in Florida. I don't know if you remember that. I can't remember her name.
It seems like there's been a lot of those.
No, but it was like, so there's a traffic stop in Utah. It was like a rolling domestic. The officers didn't have PC to arrest. So they offered the solution of, "Hey, why don't you guys separate for the night?" They didn't. And then like a week later, they found her dead way up in the mountains. And I can't remember. People probably know what I'm talking about, but anyways, yeah, like you're fucking on your own, man. That's a scary job. I would never want to do that. My hat's off to all the men and women that do a very rural job where they're running 1,400 miles a shift, which one of my buddies did. He was telling me about it on 4th of July last year.
Wow.
Just back and forth across a county where he's working by himself. It's fucking stupid.
Yeah. So defund the police, right?
We already don't have enough training.
Yeah.
That's my whole thing. It's like defund the police is why. Like there's agencies with lots of money and good gear, but there's a lot that have jack shit, no money, no training. They shoot once or twice a year. Like the NYPD, those motherfuckers, and like, I mean, I realize you're walking a foot beat, like a 2 or I don't know. They have like a couple blocks, and that's their entire beat of patrolling. But I guess they have 10-pound triggers in their guns now because they think that if the heavier the trigger, the safer the officer is going to be when shooting. When in reality, you know anything about
makes them inaccurate.
Yeah, shooting dynamics is you effectively given them a horrible trigger, and their ability to have trigger control while they're shooting is stupid unless they practice a lot. I mean, I'm not going to say it's impossible to be accurate, but it's going to make it way harder.
It's a difficult balance to find, I think, because even though the cell phones and all that is probably very, very annoying when people just want to stick a camera in your face all the time. I think one positive thing that did come out of that is that officers are a lot more careful with what they're doing. Whereas maybe previously, before there was a lot of cell phones, while of course there's good cops, there's bad cops, I feel like there was a lot less accountability than what there is today. I don't know if you would agree with that though.
Yeah, 100%. Pretty much, it was told to me, and I tell myself this every day: is don't do anything, no matter where you are, whether you're in a fucking shitter or in your patrol car in the middle of the woods, no one around, that you do not want other people to know you're doing. And then you can do what the fuck you want, as long as you're okay with people knowing that you did it.
Then you have nothing to worry about.
I'm here for a purpose, to do a job for people. Like I need to have integrity. I can't be And I mean, there's plenty of stories, especially when I was working in jail, like dudes watching porn or jacking off in the fucking control room, or people having sex with inmates, like just completely asinine stuff that shouldn't be happening in law enforcement. That unfortunately does, still does, always will.
Yeah. Now, one thing I am a bit curious about. So I've thought about this before. If you're a police officer, you're still a human. You have your personal opinions. For example, weed. I know we've talked about that, and a lot of law enforcement doesn't necessarily want to focus on that. But is so I'm curious about your personal opinion, and then what the opinion of like the greater police force as a whole, like the top brass and stuff, would be. If a police officer chooses not to enforce a law because he disagrees with it, is he considered immoral, or is he considered dishonorable, and that's like grounds for discharge maybe, or like do they just kind of let that fly, or how does that work? Is that wrong?
You're getting into the gray area, which is one of the beauties of the job and downfalls of the job, because we have a thing called officer discretion. That's the same thing as this dude ran a stop sign. Do I ticket every single person that runs a stop sign? And the answer is no. I use my discretion based on the circumstances of this particular stop. I'm going to decide, hey, does this guy deserve a ticket? And that's kind of the same thing with weed. We live like, well, the Oregon border is so close, just right on the other side of the state. Weed's coming in. We have people with weed, but it is still a misdemeanor, and it's a felony if it's over 3 ounces. I really only give a shit about a felony, or if it's like a lot of user amount. But I don't arrest. I mean, if it's a misdemeanor amount, like either I'm taking it and letting you go, or here's your misdemeanor summons. You're not going to jail, but just show up to court, take your fine or community service or whatever they're going to give you.
Yeah, that's fair. Now with burglaries, I've always figured people that are going to burglarize a home, they don't want people in the house. They want the least resistance possible. They want to identify a pattern. When's this person not here? Maybe watch them for a week or two. Okay. All right. So they're never here at 8 p.m. All right. Well, that's when I'm going to burglarize. They burglarize, someone's there. Do you find that most burglaries, that's the case, where the burglar really didn't want to encounter anyone? He just wanted to steal all the, expensive items and go? Or do you find that like they're just kind of, they're not thinking that well because the person that would burglarize a home isn't really that smart to begin with, and so they don't even really take the time to be strategic about it, and they don't care if someone's in the house?
There's so like with a lot of these questions, the answer is it just depends, because I've seen
Yeah.
everything. Um, I will
Yeah.
say a lot of criminals, like if you wanted to be a criminal, you'd probably be a really good criminal, because there's so much stuff I see where it's just not even thought out. They just do it and they suck at doing it.
Yeah.
There's no attempt to cover your tracks. Like if you were to walk in the snow, steal someone's stuff, but you're wearing gloves and then you covered up all your shoe prints, like, okay, we're never going to find you. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so like I guess our biggest burg is actually like new home builds. So people will pose, like if it's during the daytime, which I don't think happens very often, but probably does under my nose. They'll get like a van that says like construction with like a sticker on the side, so it looks official. They'll roll up, steal a bunch of lumber and leave, or tools and stuff like that. But a lot of times it's early in the morning, like 5 or 6 in the morning, so they know that people aren't around.
Yeah.
So I think the plan is either do it when no one's around or try to blend in. Don't look out of place. Like put on a reflector vest, carry a ladder, and then walk into the movie theater and watch a movie for free. You know what I mean? Like that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. um okay. And I don't mean to set this up like an interview. There's just certain things I'm really curious about, and I'd like to get on the podcast. But
Sure. Yeah. Whatever.
yeah. um Well, I had another question and it just slipped my mind. Oh, okay, I got it. I got it again. So, one thing I'd like to get on the podcast, because I don't think people really see it. There's no cell phones inside the police department recording all the cops and everything. What kind of accountability is there amongst police officers? Like, if you were to go do something dumb, and you do, like, say you did something where you were completely wrong, you weren't enforcing the law, you were enforcing your ego, whatever. What would happen to you? Like, how would you be held accountable? Or maybe you holding someone else accountable? How does all that work?
Well, there's different levels. If you do something stupid, like let's say I write somebody a ticket and it was a righteous ticket, but my reason for pulling them over wasn't just, they're going to fix the problem. Like you're going to get reprimanded in a way. You're not going to get fired, but they're going to fix the problem, make sure the person is not no longer being held accountable. Like, hey, this was an error. It's not going through. You send it to the PA, be like, hey, I'm no longer pursuing this infraction or something of that nature.
Yeah.
But effectively, if you violate somebody's rights, you're fucked. Like you're either facing termination completely or some other very, very, very big penalty, which typically would just be termination. I've seen these guys get fired over some dumb shit. It's like, it's almost at the point where people are so scared of getting fired that they won't do real police work because it seems like that's the answer for a lot of stuff. Um, but yeah, there is no fucking around if you violated somebody's rights. If it's something less than that, then I don't know, you get written up, you get made fun of a lot. But if you're not violating somebody's rights, then your big mistakes typically aren't that big a deal,
Yeah.
Like if it's an officer safety risk, then yeah, you're gonna get your ass chewed and you're gonna get made fun of for a long time.
It sounds very similar to how my life was the last few years.
Hang on.
Or you're not entirely sure.
Yeah, I think the intent is a huge factor to it, but I don't know if the courts are gonna actually say that's okay. Like if you accidentally kill somebody, I don't know. That's a tough one, dude. I'm not the jury in the courtroom. I think that if you don't have, like, you got to look at the intent though. Even with like the George Floyd thing.
Yeah. Yep.
Like, did he have intent to kill him?
No.
Probably not, but he was so far out of the line of duty that he did. So negligence upon your actions, it's like, okay, you accidentally killed somebody because you fucking suck with a gun and you missed all your shots and killed the innocent bystander.
Yeah. And you've been on the force for 10 years, so there's no excuse for you to be bad with your gun.
Yeah, dude, like there's just sometimes people need to be held accountable.
Now, what do you think if you see some new guy and he shows up, he's pretty fat, doesn't look like he's even picked up a weight, barely passed the PT test. How's that guy treated? Is he treated like shit, or is it like, it's okay, man, just kind of do a little bit of running, Or yeah.
I don't know, it just depends on the cop.
Yeah.
I
think you guys should all be beasts, man. And I see a lot of fat cops out there.
They're very big into fitness, and if you show up like a fat bag of dicks, like, fuck you, you shouldn't be here. There's agencies that won't even hire people that look like that. Like there's a couple around my area where, like, if you're not 6'4" or taller and just jacked with a bunch of like yadded out arms, then you won't even like get hired. Like it's almost like every cop that works there just looks like an absolute PT god, which is kind of funny. But I don't know. My mindset's like, one, I don't want you to be my backup. I don't really trust you. However, I'm okay with you working there, and I'm totally okay with you being a cop, but you need to show me that you're phenomenal at something.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be fitness. It doesn't have to be shooting. But like, if you're really good at field interviewing people, or like I was telling you earlier, working, like talking special needs kids down off a ledge, like if there's something you can do that is just completely above and beyond everybody else, if you can bring that to the table, then we're square. And then you can fix everything else.
Yeah.
Like you can control how heavy you are to a certain extent. Eat less, work out more. You can control how bad you are at shooting by shooting more. So those are all fixable problems. But as long as you show me that you have some sort of skill to bring to the table, then everything else can be improved on.
That's a good mindset, I think. Because if someone shows up and they're fat and they don't have the positive attitude of like, people are making fun of me and using that as like competitive energy to get better, it's probably better to treat that person with like positive reinforcement on what they're good at and then try to push them in the direction of fitness, I guess. But then again, maybe you wouldn't want someone on the police force that's that soft that they can't take the harsh criticism.
Well, yeah, I don't. If you legitimately want to be here, then you're going to push through all the other stuff. People making fun of you, you're gonna see, oh, this is my flaws and I need to get better. And it's not like you're not gonna get babied. People aren't gonna talk behind your back. People are gonna walk right up to you and be like, hey, you look like a bag of dicks. Fix your shit. There is no secrets.
Yeah. I kind of love that because it sounds rude and everything, but it's so much better to work somewhere where people just tell you how they feel rather than like talk about you behind your back.
Well, there's two reasons behind it. One is I actually care about you and I want you to be good. And two is I don't want to fucking die because you're a fat bag of dicks.
Yeah. Totally valid.
Or I don't want you to, like, going back to the last thing we said. And it's just such a gray area. But dude, if your negligence causes an innocent person to die, you're gonna have to really, really, and I think this is pretty much how it goes too. Is they really weigh into your intent, what you reasonably understood at the time, and how the events unfolded. Because if I'm shooting at somebody, I fire 5 rounds, 30 yards behind them, 4 feet to the left, there's somebody who's completely out of my peripheral because I'm tunnel vision on this dude. Like, I think that may be acceptable. It's not acceptable in my eyes. It's not acceptable in any cop's eyes, but maybe the courts would show grace. But if you're just blankly firing into a house, or you're sitting with your knee on someone's neck for, I don't know, was it 30 minutes while they're restrained? Like, those are completely different circumstances.
That makes sense, man. Yeah, it sounds like common sense is really the deciding factor on a lot of this gray area.
It's kind of the biggest thing with court. You ever sit on a court, they're like, they just ask the questions. It's like, hey, so you didn't think that this was necessary? Nope. Huh. Are you sure? I was thinking about something else at the time. Okay, no further questions.
Yeah.
That's it.
Now, so I know you're not a lawyer, but you obviously have a lot of experience dealing with a court or seeing cases or whatever. Have you ever seen a court maybe judge, in your opinion, differently because they were in the public eye versus a case that was not in the public eye?
I don't think I'm special enough to be involved with something that was like high priority or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, anything that's in the news, it gets way. I mean, it goes all the way up to like state supreme typically.
Okay.
And I've never been involved in a case that's gotten that high, so I can't answer that question. I'm sure that, I mean, knowing professional lifestyle, maybe I'm completely wrong, but I'd do the same. I would treat, I don't know, you name a celebrity like Matthew McConaughey or Morgan Freeman the same I would treat some tweaker on the street.
Yeah.
Just depending on the circumstances, right? Like, I'm not giving people special treatment because they're special. I'm not giving people special treatment because I'm being filmed on cops. Like, I'm just going to do my job because I know when I do my job, I do it the right way.
Okay.
At least in my, I don't know. Some people would probably be like, that cop's a dick, but like, they're
yeah. Right. So shifting gears a little bit, what's the funniest thing that's ever happened to you on the police force? I know there's probably a lot.
Dude, that's the hardest question that anybody's ever asked me. Like, you got to be more specific.
Okay, fine. Funniest traffic stop. And if there is one, funniest burglary.
Dude, I don't even know. So here's the thing. I've like went back and watched body camera, like trying to find stuff. And I click on a traffic stop and I have zero recollection of it. And it was like 3 weeks ago. I don't remember the person's face. I don't remember the car. Let's put a little bookmark in that and I'll try to think as we're talking.
Okay. All right. Well,
I kind of got,
okay.
This is not, it'd be funnier if you saw it happening in front of your eyes, but
yeah,
I walk up to this car and I got my hand on my gun, which I do for every traffic stop. Not to intimidate, but just to be ready. I'm not trying to get caught off guard. This guy pokes his head out the window. He's like, "Get your fucking hand off the fucking gun, you motherfucker!" I'm like, "No." He's like, "You're a piece of shit. You're just trying to intimidate me, you fucking bench warmer." I just thought it was funny that his insult he chose for me was the bench warmer. I wouldn't say that's the funniest one. That's just something that I could think of off the top.
Yeah, I guess I could see that's funny. Now, if you wanted your traffic stop to go as smooth as possible, what do you do? And if you wanted it to go as horribly wrong, no, that's probably too easy of a question. If you wanted it to be very uncomfortable, what would you do?
Be a dick.
Okay, that seems pretty
I don't know.
straightforward.
Just yeah, dude.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I could walk up to anybody and be like, "Hey, how's your day going? I mean, I don't want to bother you, but the reason I stopped you is for this. You're probably not going to get a ticket, but I need your driver's license and registration." Then
Yeah.
they'll be like super compliant and happy, you know.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know. It just depends. Like sometimes people do stuff where you walk up to the car and you do that typical like cop walks up, the first thing he says to you is just like some completely condescending asshole thing, and
Yeah.
I don't I don't do that often. But if it's something stupid like they legitimately almost caused a crash or something, I've from time to time said something dumb.
Yeah. Well, I what I usually do, because I've been pulled over probably 6 times and I think I've gotten 2 tickets or maybe 7. It's probably been more. Because I'm a pretty responsible driver these days, but I was a complete idiot at 18. And but I always had respect for the police. And I used to listen to this one YouTuber, his name was Nut and Fancy, and he always talked about what he did when he got pulled over. If it was nighttime, he turned his lights on and he
Oh
always
yeah, I
rolled
know
all
him.
4 windows down. Oh, you
He's
do
like
know him?
45-minute long videos.
Yeah, I actually like the guy a lot. I haven't listened to him in forever, but I used to quite a bit.
Yeah, he's kind of like a little. He's like a little nerd. Yeah, I know him.
Yeah, my
I
favorite
bet.
video of his is a damned good Joe, is the name of it. And he basically
I
just
just remember
talks about
watching
being a
him
good
shoot
dude.
like AR-15s at like 400 yards in his backyard, which just somehow was like the Wyoming plains.
Man, he's like a retired Air Force pilot and like he's just living his life, man, just
Yeah,
having a blast, dude.
the most
It's great.
interesting man in the world.
Yeah.
Anyways,
But yeah, anyway, so normally what I do is I just put my windows down. Like most recently, I got pulled over. All 4 windows went down, dome lights went up. Police officers went up or came up to me. One was on the passenger side. He was kind of like the security, it seemed. Like if I tried anything, he was watching everything I was doing, where my hands were
yep.
going. I told them, and all the time, like if they're like license and registration, please, I'll be like, all right, license is in my back pocket. Am I good to grab it? Okay, registration's in the glove compartment. Is it okay if I reach in there? Like things like that. And I have gotten off most and like I don't try to sit there and BS them. I don't try to like lie to them. I know I sound like a kiss ass, but I'm just saying, like, just by being like a good person, people would say it's white privilege, but I think it's like just basic respect gets you very far. Like you
Sure.
might get a
But
ticket, but
yeah,
yeah,
I mean, a ticket's a ticket. So here's the thing: I try to be as respectful and courteous on every stop I do, and then as the situation unfolds, things change because sometimes people respond to cops being more stern, and by being more stern, I mean you're going to think that, oh, that cop's being a dick, but sometimes people respond to cops being stern. Sometimes they respond to them being more empathetic. So you just kind of feel the person you're talking to and hope you get it right, kind of like a game of rock paper scissors.
and you
Um,
get better as you go on.
yeah. So typically, I walk up to people, introduce myself. I'm Deputy So and So at the So and So Sheriff's Office, and do you know why I pulled you over? And the reason I ask, instead of telling them, because I used to tell them, be like, do you know why I pulled you over? And let's say I pulled them over because they didn't stop at a stop sign, and they're gonna say, I didn't stop at the stop sign completely. And I'm like, you're exactly right. You have your driver's license, registration, proof of insurance.
Yeah.
Or they might say, because I was drinking tonight. And I'm like, gotcha.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I was about to ask you if it's a self-incriminating question. If you're just
Yeah,
like, yeah,
it's an open-ended question, and they may give me more information than I have. So it's like, okay, sweet. Now I know that you've been drinking. Now I can try to investigate that further and see if you're
yeah,
okay to drive. Because drinking and driving is legal. It's just not drinking while you're driving or being over the legal limit while you're
yeah, yeah,
driving. But yeah, so I'll ask that, and the second I do that, they know I'm here, and then as they're reaching for the driver's license, the registration, and the proof of insurance, I start asking more questions, distracting questions to see how they react, because that can give me keys to impairment. As they're reaching for the driver's license or for the registration, I'm like, hey, where are you coming from? And then they just completely stop and answer and then look at me. I'm like, you gonna give me your registration? They're like, oh yeah. I'm like, okay, well, where do you live? And then they stop again and they just stare at me like they're very forgetful. That could potentially be a indication that they're impaired. But typically, I'll ask like as they're doing that, they'll give me the answers. Where are you coming from? Where are you going to? They don't have to answer. They're like, I got a front to answer. I'm like, okay, that's fine. But then I just keep pestering them, keep asking them different questions and just seeing what I can get because they don't have to answer them. I'm just asking. The reason I'm asking is not because I give a shit as to where they're coming from, where they're going to, but I'm
Yeah.
trying to get more indication whether they're impaired. Maybe they say, "Oh, I was coming from the bar down the road." Like, okay, sweet, that's another indication as to something. Or I'm coming from Oregon. Like, oh, they're coming from Oregon. That I don't know. There could be a very, very, very small chance that they're trafficking pounds of meth or marijuana through, right?
Yeah.
So I do that. I'll ask them how much you had to drink tonight. A lot of people get really turned off by that question because they're like, "Oh, I've had nothing to drink," but I don't ask, uh, "Have you had anything to drink tonight?" Because they'll just say no. It's like when you're working at a retail store. Instead of saying, "Can I help you with anything?" you say, "What can I help you find?" You get that
Yeah.
open. So I asked how much you had to drink tonight. You'd be surprised how many people are like, "Oh, I've had 2 beers," where you would have known before. Or you ask how much marijuana is in the car, how many illegal narcotics in the car. You just guess. It's like fishing.
Yeah.
Throw
Yeah.
your line into a pond, hope you get a fish to bite. Hey, how much crystal meth in this car right now? And the guy's like, oh fuck, you got me. It's
Yeah.
just like a bunch of kids in it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like who knows?
Yeah. That makes sense. Can you invoke your rights? Okay, obviously you can. But like for example, if you pulled me over and you said, "Do you know why I pulled you over?" and I said, "Officer, I respect you. I don't mean to give you a hard time, but I'm going to plead the fifth on that." Like, is that instantly like, "Oh, well, this guy's up to something," or "Oh, this guy's a dick," or like,
Some cops might think that I wouldn't, because I mean, effectively, what you're doing is you're just shutting down everything I just talked about. You're like, I'm not going to answer your questions. Here's my driver's license. Here's my registration. Here's my proof of insurance,
yeah,
and that's it. It's like, okay, now I can't, because once you hand him everything, it's like if he's just standing there asking you questions that you're not answering, effectively he's now delaying a traffic stop. Could be seen that way by the court. You're not giving him any indication. You're not answering any further question. He has no reason to sit there and try to find more stuff unless he has odor or you're exhibiting like odor of marijuana or alcohol, or he can see physically see stuff in the car, or you're giving an indication that you may be impaired by any of that. Then he's got nothing. And
that seems like such an easy thing to claim. Like, "Oh, I smell weed. Get out of the car." You know, like,
yeah, that's it. That just comes down to the you've been sworn in to do the job right. You've promised that you're going to be of high integrity, and if you're lying about it, you may get away with it this time. But at some point, it'll probably catch up with you. And at
yeah,
some point, your peer will probably call you out on it. Be like, dude, I searched the car that you said you smelled odor on, and I didn't smell a goddamn thing. Like, what are you doing?
yeah, yeah.
Because
And
I
it
have
comes
no
back to that
interest in being,
accountability.
yeah,
Yeah,
I have no interest in being around dudes that are going to be like that. Because a lot, it's like, dude, why are we harassing the public? Why are we
yeah,
pulling over good people? This dude's in a minivan. He rolled through a stop sign, didn't even come to a full stop. Like, who gives a fuck? There's no
yeah.
sense in us just blatantly going out there and harassing everybody for
Well,
no
bro,
reason.
there are some retarded stop signs that are just so stupidly placed. It's like, man, there's no reason for that to be there. I'm sure
Yeah.
technically according to code or whatever it's supposed to be there, but like it's like, dude, there's no but there's like one house on this street and that was a mile back, and we just have a random stop sign because there's a street that goes to the right. Like I'm rolling it. I'm rolling that stop sign. you know.
Well,
But
I
I
did
yeah,
the last through a stop sign 2 nights ago, and I'm like, hey man, I pulled you over. He's like, well, yeah, I didn't stop at that stop sign. And the reason I didn't is because it's a snowstorm, and I knew if I was going to slam on my brakes, I was just going to roll through or slide through it anyways. I didn't see anybody around. I knew I was going too fast, so I just went through it. I'm like, that's fair. So,
yeah, yeah.
and then literally 30 minutes later, I did the exact same thing he did. I'm like, oh fuck it, and just went straight through. So yeah, I mean, we're
yeah,
human. We do the same shit that normal people do. I show grace. There's cops that don't, which I don't
yeah.
really appreciate. In fact, I don't respect. If you're just writing a ticket to everybody, like go be a nerd somewhere else.
Okay, so if you do you have trackers on your car? Like for example, say you exceed a speed limit, but you're not on a call. Would that pop up on someone's radar or nah?
Yeah, 90 miles an hour. It goes to the lieutenant.
Okay. But yeah, because the reason I asked that is because I heard one time, a lot of people get annoyed. They're like, "Oh yeah, look at these police officers. They're over there speeding, but they'll ticket us if we do it." But I've heard before that you could be on a silent, or I don't know if that's what it's called, but basically a silent call where you don't want to draw attention to the fact that you're coming. So you're not making noise, you're not showing your lights, you're just trying to
Mhm.
get there quietly and quickly. Um, that happens often, or uh, not so
Yeah,
often.
so if this video ever blows up, I want the world to know that if I am not running lights and sirens, which in police word we call code 3, and I'm driving super fast, I'm probably going to an emergency. However, it either one doesn't render me tuning lights and sirens because I don't want people to know I'm coming. Although we will run code 3 silent, which is just lights but no siren until we
Yeah.
get close. We'll turn them off. But there's other situations like my partner is on a traffic stop. The guy gets out of the car. Um, he's like, "Hey man, I need a second as quickly as you can." We're not at the point where it's gonna where I'm fighting someone where I need you to come code 3. However, it could get to that point. So in my eyes, I'm like, okay, sweet. I'm just not turning my lights and sirens, but I'm gonna haul ass there. That's called code 2. It's getting there as feasibly possible while still obeying traffic laws. However,
Okay.
speed limit is kind of flexible on that line.
Okay. Now, Torch, how old were you? How old were you when you joined? And
25.
okay, so you had some experience in life, and I know there's a minimum
Oh,
age,
24. I was 24.
24. What drew you to it? Like, was it just like the job is like, oh, that's cool, or was it like, was there a specific incident or something that like made you just want to join the police force? Or yeah,
I don't even know. I wanted to be in the military for a long time, and then I moved out to the place I live with my wife, and decided that I didn't want to leave. I'm like, I'm ready to settle down. By the time I graduated college, I'm like, I'm ready to settle down. I don't want to go anywhere else. So I decided the military was not for me. Um,
error.
Respect for the people that it is for, because it's tough job for sure.
Oh, I mean,
Very
yeah,
tough.
you still sign up for something needed. You know, like police force, in my opinion, is scarier than infantry work right now. I mean, that'd be different if like World War III popped off, but right now, at
Right.
least, police work is that's where it's at if you want action.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Like I decided it wasn't for me, but I still wanted to do something worth my time. I
Yeah,
wanted to like hang my hat up at the end of the day and be like, okay, like I had a good day. Although I hang my hat up at the end of the day most of the time and just like want to fucking scream at the gods of police. Uh,
um,
yeah,
okay,
I'm like, I want to do something worthwhile. I want to do something cool, like do stuff that most people don't get to do, don't get the opportunity to. I knew it was tough. I knew it was competitive and hard to get into, and that drew me to it. So I'm like, fuck it, I'll try it.
yeah, dude. I mean, you have a very exciting job. Of course, there's the risk and the danger, and then all the things you see, that I'm sure
It's
weigh
it's
on you,
exciting sometimes. Don't get mistaken, dude.
but boring a
We
lot of times.
probably you guys probably did more standing around than we do, but we do a lot of fucking standing around.
Yeah, I mean that's probably good just to balance things out a bit. You kind of need your downtime and your uptime. So
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Now now I know this is probably another difficult question because I know you've probably had like a lot of meaningful things you've done in the police force. But if you had to pick maybe one, or if that's too hard, maybe narrowing it down to two or three, what do you think is some of the most meaningful things you've done in the police force? Like that just
Meaningful.
makes your heart all warm and fuzzy, your eyes get a little teared up when you think about, like, do you have anything like that?
Yeah. So the most meaningful thing I've ever done in the police force, by far. So I went to the house on the 23rd of December, and a couple years ago, and so we went there to serve a move out order for a no contact order between a mom and a dad. They had a bunch of kids in the house. So we tell the dad, we're like, hey, like pack your shit, get the fuck out. So we facilitate that. He grabs his stuff. Takes about 15 minutes. Pack him up. He leaves because he's not allowed to be there per court order. If he goes back, he'll get violated, go to jail. Like most people would understand that as a restraining order, but it has criminal enforcement attached to it. So we came back the next day. What did we do? We came back the next day to like give her portion of the paperwork, and we walk in. We're like, hey, like, where's your tree? and the mom was like, "Oh, we took it down because dad has all the presents and we just decided we'll try again next year."
Oh,
So me and my partner were like, "Fuck that." So we went out, we grabbed a county fund, which we have like a credit card where we can do stuff like this. Went out to Walmart, bought a bunch of shit, bought a tree, came back to the house with Santa hats, and went into their house, set up the tree, turned on the music, brought them some cookies, brought them a
oh
ton of
man,
gifts, and it was pretty it was badass.
that's
That Yeah,
awesome.
that one stuck. That one stung. When I walked in, they're like, "We'll try again next year." When you got
Oh
a little
man,
4-year old and a little 6-year old, like, fuck that.
yeah, dude, that's awesome, man. And I wish stuff like that was, you know, blasted on YouTube, because like it's not just shitty police interactions. Like you guys do some awesome things, man. And like no one wants to put that out there, or maybe they do and it just doesn't catch traction,
Yeah.
because people want
That
to
one,
see y'all messing up. They don't want to see y'all, getting some mom a Christmas tree and gifts and stuff like that.
yeah. Well, there's so many people, like nobody else in the world would have known. Like the fire
Yeah.
department, they're not going to know because they're not out there, and it's not like they don't do great things because they do, but they're not in the houses, right? Unless they
Yeah.
have to. So we're in the community, we're seeing the worst, and I would consider that the worst.
Yeah.
Like legitimately, that sucks because Christmas is it's just a special time. Like I'm closest to God during Christmas. Um, as a kid, and I haven't felt the magic of Christmas since I was a child. Like I'm hoping that when my baby comes, that'll reignite. But like to take that away from a child for a year, like no, absolutely not. That's not acceptable.
No, that's awesome, man. And I'm so happy to hear that, police do stuff like that too. Because like I think not only, for the good of the community, but I think it's like a reminder for the police, like, hey man, we're here to help, you know, not just
Oh
with
yeah,
kicking indoors, but also with this.
yeah. It's just community interaction. Like our job is not always. I mean, there's so many things that we do. You see it in movies, like okay, oh cops, they're gonna pull me over, and he's gonna drink out of my piss bottle, right? Like from Dumb and Dumber. He's gonna give me. He's gonna be like all the state troopers. You have the parking cop that all he does is write tickets for that. Or you have like the gung ho cop who's kicking in doors. Or you watch End of Watch, and End of Watch is a good movie. I would say it's probably the most realistic police movie. However, there is stuff in there, and I've never worked in LA, so I can't say. I have buddies
Yeah,
that do.
that's like a pretty hot department right there, right? Like you're always in stuff.
For the most part, I got two buddies that work in some of the divisions down there. They didn't work at Newman where the movie was filmed, and my partner worked close to Newman. He worked in like the next division over. Um, he then moved up to where I'm working. Um, but that stuff still exists. There's still times where they do some sort of community thing, and I realize there's a lot of cops that like if it's an organized thing, like oh the sheriff's office putting this on, like count me out. You guys are a bunch of nerds. Like that's for the brass. But if it's something that I can self initiate, 100%. I don't think it would have fit in with the storyline, but like that little kid standing there on the street with riding a scooter around, and there's a little popsicle truck next to him. Like, hey man, you want a piece of ice cream? Yeah, like use your ice cream. Like do it all the time. In fact, one of my partners, he rolled up to a grocery store. A kid was stealing donuts. Like a I don't know, 13-year-old, 14-year-old kid, and the manager of the store is like, I want him arrested. And he's like, how about I just buy the donuts, dude? And the manager's like, okay. So he paid for the donuts and then chewed the kid's ass. And that was the end of it.
That's
Which is my
awesome,
favorite
man.
thing. I think the best justice for kids is to not take them to jail, but just make them feel like shit.
No, man,
Because
I got set straight myself by a
yeah.
police officer, and I don't necessarily want to broadcast this on the podcast, but I did something stupid. I was a young dude. I lied to the cops about something. I was trying to cover up for a couple of buddies, like complete idiot, like retard. I think I might have been 13 or 14 or something. And so long story short, my mom had thought it was legit, and then once she found out it wasn't, uh she called the police department and let them know that hey, this was a lie, this is what happened. And they were like, "Hey, yeah, thanks for just letting us know. You know, this stuff happens all the time. No worries." And then she was like, "No, no, 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 no. If you guys can, will you please send a police officer out here to just scare the crap out of my son?" And
Oh, you told me about this.
I did, you know, the whole thing, man. I don't want to get into like everything I did, and then I did
I'm
actually commit
picturing it
legit
right
crimes
now
as
because
a
you
13 year
were
old or 12
recruiting
year
me
old.
to USM and I was flying an airplane in flight sim and I'm picturing I was over Oakland airport when you were telling me.
Yeah, I mean, I could get into it on the podcast. Like, I don't think anyone would actually think I'm like this horrible person or whatever. But no, basically, she had this cop come out and he chewed me out. He's like, "Bro," or no, he didn't say bro. Sorry. He's like, "Do you understand what you did?" And I was like, "Yes, sir." You know, and at this point, I was in tears. I was like some stupid kid that was just, um, overwhelmed with my reality at the moment. And the police officer was like, "You know what? I'm gonna." And my mom had made me meatloaf before he got there, and she's like, "Honey, you need to eat this because this is probably the last good meal you're gonna have for a long time." and and so, I to this day I don't like meatloaf. um, but the cop came in, he chewed me up, and then he's like, "I'm gonna go out to my car, I'm gonna do some paperwork, and then I'm gonna come back in here and I'm taking you to prison. You're gonna be in there for years." And I was like, and my mom looked at him and she told me, because I didn't know until I was like 18 years old. She never let me off the hook and told me that this was all set up until I was an adult, and she was sure I wasn't going to be like a criminal because I was on a bad path, man. And so this cop chewed me up and everything. He went out to his car and I was crying and everything, and I was talking to my mom and I was like, "I'm so sorry, Mom. Like, this isn't your fault. This is I'm so sorry." Like all that stupid crap. And then he comes back in and he's like, "Well, you got lucky tonight, boy. There's no room in the prison." So, which is such a ridiculous thing to say. He's like, "But I want you to know, I would have figured something out if it weren't for her or him. I don't care about you. You could rot in prison for all I care. But this mom and your brother, they're the only reason that I am not taking you to prison tonight." And I swear, man, I never ever did anything again illegal. I mean, I don't think I did. I mean, I smoke pot. I don't, but like I never like did anything illegal, like actually. I mean, you know what I mean, like anything serious ever, 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 ever again. And it totally worked on me. So like, but that wouldn't work nowadays. You couldn't just go into a house and like roast some. I mean, maybe if the mom's in on it and she makes sure that no one's recording or whatever. But like, if the cop had been recorded and that had gotten blasted all over the internet, that guy probably would have lost his job. But honestly, that guy probably saved my life, man. I might have been in a prison right now if that guy didn't chew me up and intimidate the crap out of me like that. That really that set me straight, man. Just like the show, Set
Scared
Straight
straight.
or whatever. He's Scared Straight. That's what he did. Legit. I was scared straight. I never ever did anything like that again. I always had respect for the police. You know what I mean? So like, I think some of that's necessary. I think some of that's good. Like, if it's with that intent, you're not just bullying some kid, but like you're just trying to scare him so that he doesn't screw his
Well, yeah.
life up. Yeah.
Yep. And well, that's the thing. Like, I don't care if the kid's like, "Oh, all cops are dicks," but the point is, like, I don't know. I'll give you an example, I guess. There have been times when I've talked to mom. I'm like, "Hey, would you like me to like kind of set expectation for them?" And they're like, "Yeah." So then I do it right in front of mom, and like I'll look over and wink at him while the kid's like crying, right?
Yeah.
And I'll be
You're
like,
taking a
"What?"
risk when you do that, right? Because you're having to trust them that the mom's not gonna like flip the script and.
No, no, because I mean, I'm not going to lie to them. I'll tell them everything true. I might bend a little bit of truth, but I'm not going to be like, "Oh, you're going to go to prison forever." I don't know. An
Yeah.
example is okay. I pull over a kid. He's driving his car. He doesn't have his driver's license on him. It's like, okay, so here's my problem. Like, I'll come back after I'm done. Be like, all right, here's my problem, man. You're operating a vehicle without a license. You have a driver's license, but you don't have it on you. Is that correct? He's like, yeah. I'm like, okay. You realize that's a misdemeanor in the state we're in right now. He's like, no. I'm like, you could be going to jail tonight. However, you're not. So go home and don't ever do this again. Do you understand? They're like, oh yeah. And that's the end of it.
Yeah.
Like stuff in that, I guess, like more like that, less like what you're kind of
That
describing.
that's but that's where discretion is important because people want like officers to have to follow the letter of the law and everything. And don't get me wrong, yes, but it has to be tempered. It has to be balanced. Like you got to give these guys some freedom, not just to like when they're in the gray area situations of danger, but also in the areas of correction and like guidance. Because if you got a 13-year-old kid and you're a 28-year-old cop that's seen the worst of society, you have all this life experience, you dealt with the worst of the worst, you have some really, really good lessons you could teach a young man, that you could keep him out of some trouble.
Yeah, well,
And,
that's the thing. I'm not going to chain up a kid for drinking alcohol. I'm not going to chain up a kid for doing stuff that I did because I've
yeah,
been there and I've gotten in trouble for dumb stuff that, in my eyes, like if a cop would have just told me, "Hey, knock it off," I never would have done it again. But said I got fucked. Not like, and it's not like I did anything bad, but you kind of know what I mean, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So yeah, I'm like, tell him to knock it off. Like, there's no way in hell that I'm ever gonna cite a kid for possession of tobacco or a vape. Like, absolutely not. I'm gonna take it from him and I'm gonna tell him to knock that shit off because we did the same shit. It wasn't vapes back
Yeah,
then, cigarettes and dip.
yeah, yeah, dude. I remember 16. I never messed with dip or cigarettes. I was kind of scared out of that too. I have asthma and all that, but um, I remember we knew the gas stations that would do it, that would
Yeah,
sell us it,
yeah.
and
Good
we
old
would,
man. Never mind.
yeah, we'd go there, we'd get our cigarette or dip or whatever it might be. Not me, but I'd be there, and it's like those guys weren't criminals. I mean, some of them grew up to be like mechanics and just normal people. It wasn't like they're out to do society. I think that's it. I feel okay. I get if you're a kid, you're not allowed to make decisions that could hurt yourself because you're too stupid to make them. But if you're an adult and you're not hurting anybody else, I feel like you should be left alone. But and you should be able to do whatever you want. If you want to be some meth addict, I know that sounds horrible, but I feel like you have the personal sovereignty to do with yourself what you please. And maybe that help should be provided, if you do decide to make the right decision. But, when your freedoms start trumping on everyone else's, that's when you should be stopped, but unless that's happening, I think that you should be allowed to do what you please.
I think a big portion of that, as to why I do some of those things, like I'm saying, like sternest warning you can possibly give and tell them what the consequences could have been. Effectively, is what I do. But I speak to them in their language, like I'm still young enough to understand. Um, and most people see that. So I'm like, "You're some old cop," and I'm like, "Dude, like I was in college like 4 years ago." And they're like, "Oh, okay." Um, Sidebar: I was taking a juvenile to jail, and this person was like, "Very." I'm like, "What kind of music you like?" Because sometimes if I'm taking someone to jail, they're being cool. I'm like, "Hey, you want like what kind of music do you like?" And I'll play that music for them. But taking them to juvenile hall, and this girl's like, "Oh, I really like My Chemical Romance and Fall Out Boy." I'm like, "Like, how old are you?" Because that's like the music I grew up with. So yeah, we were like jamming out. It was pretty cool. Anyways, but
Yeah.
that nature, I've talked to a lot of people, especially adults, who are like, "I'm like, how did you start doing heroin or meth?" And they're like, "Well, my dad offered it to me when I was 10, and then I just never stopped."
uh
And so that's why I do that. I'm like, dude, the consequences of what you're doing are going to be held against you very soon, but not tonight. So figure it out. You know what I mean?
yeah, you give that like almost big brother advice to these kiddos
Yeah,
that
exactly.
act like a fool. Yeah, yeah, because that's the thing, man. You screw up when you're young, it sucks. You're gonna have to pay the consequences, but you are young. There is time, and I hate it because like I have a cousin who's in prison. He's been in and out. I got a lot of family that actually has been in and out of prison quite a bit. But it's always sad because it seems like they just get stuck in that. They don't know how to break out of that lifestyle. They get dependent on the system. They've been in prison longer than they've been out of prison. Um,
Dude, the system is kind of fucked.
yeah. I
I'm
don't know
not
what
gonna
the
say
solution is either, man. Because like, what are you gonna do? Shut all the prisons down and construct a new solution? Like, no, you still got to do something with these guys that are going out and doing all, killing people and stealing stuff and all that. But like, how do we
Well,
create a system that would actually change their lives in a positive direction and not make them dependent?
I don't think it's this, I don't think it's the well, I'd say actually it's partially the prison incarceration system. However, I think society in itself plays a huge role because, and let's just look back, and I'm going to botch up a lot of these words because it's been a long time since I went to the jail academy, but they taught us about uh, the hands-on prison system, the hands-off prison system, and then I can't remember what they call the one that we do now. But anyways, the hands-off prison system was like one guard for 100 people, and they were just locked up all day. And if they fucked around, they got brought out and they got the shit beat out of them.
Yeah.
And we're talking like the Bastille, like in France in like the 1700s, like
Yeah.
that, like a Pirates of the Caribbean kind of prison, right? Where you just have no rights, and if you fuck, like you are a criminal. If you're a criminal, no matter what the crime is, you are treated like a criminal, like a zero class citizen, and you're going to get your ass beat if you misbehave whatsoever. And you are scum. And the only way to escape this world of being scum is to serve your sentence and never commit a crime again. And that's the way it was done back in the day. And then I think the hands-on system was, you think like Alcatraz or like Shawshank,
Yeah. Yeah.
where
Yeah.
there were still prison beatings. It was more structured. Like there's rec. You actually are getting fed like a certain amount of calories a day. There's just more structure. Like parole was kind of set up, and I think that kind of worked in a society where, and I don't know, I could be blowing shit out of my ass because I'm not a huge like. I don't know if society's actually playing a role. I guess it's the same argument of like, are video games making people more violent? But I will say, and I just think about this as an example of what I'm trying to get to. The shell shock or the PTSD that was experienced after World War One, when you look at the videos of what the guys were going through and like the psychosis they went through, the involuntary muscle movements, like these dudes turned into monsters. And nowadays, like, and I don't have PTSD, so I can't say, but it seems like PTSD is more or less like flashbacks and not being able to sleep. And I'm just going to put that, like, I know I'm not doing PTSD justice, and don't take any disrespect to people that actually have it, because maybe it is what they were experiencing in World War One. But I think it was because the expectation of what war was back then, when it wasn't documented, like there's these naive kids going into something, and now they're seeing war firsthand. And nowadays, it's like you go into war and you have an idea as to what it's going to be like, so you're
Yeah.
kind of mentally prepared for it. So it's just, I don't say that our PTSD is different than the shell shock from back in the day. It may just be, or it's like any less rather, but it's just different.
Well, true PTSD is described by, and I'm, you know, take you with a grain of salt. I could be totally misquoting the guy. And I will paraphrase, so I won't actually quote, but basically by Dr. Jordan Peterson, a clinical psychologist, what he describes as PTSD is the individual that was living in a bubble, which is most of us Americans, where we don't see death, we don't see destruction, and we don't see crime, we don't see like all the horrible things that humanity is capable of. We usually only see like the most positive ends of what humanity is capable of. But then you take one of these people that's never ever seen anything crazy, and you put them in a job where they see that on a daily, maybe not a daily basis, but they see it on a regular basis. Um, that produces a sort of trauma, because you, in your mind, you had this perception of reality that was completely skewed and false. However, you are now faced with it, and then that is what causes PTSD. A lot of people that claim depression, PTSD, in my opinion, um, it's not due to some chemical imbalance or anything outside of their control. If they, for example, say someone says, I'm really depressed, it's like, okay, do you work out? No. Do you take your vitamins? Like, are you vitamin D deficient? One of the things that contributes to depression, which 90% of Americans are. Oh, okay, well, maybe you should take some vitamins. Work out, take vitamins, drink water. Do you get 8 hours of sleep? Oh, you can't sleep? Take some melatonin. Eat a hemp gummy. If weed's legal, eat a weed gummy. Like, whatever you gotta do, get some sleep.
Stop being a bitch and sleep.
Yeah, yeah, just like do what you got to do. Take care of your basic human requirements, and a lot of times that alleviates most depression. And depression, I don't know how you feel about this guy, Andrew Tate. And I've been on an Andrew Tate kick recently. I do not agree with everything the guy says, but I do agree with certain points that he makes, even if he makes them very coarsely and maybe moronically. Although I do think he's a very smart man and he makes very good points. Is that depression a lot of times is extreme selfishness, and that is that you are so focused on yourself and your pain that you are now depressed. But had you done something, like, a good way to get out of that or to snap out of that mindset is to go do something nice for someone. I won't say what I've done, but I've, getting out of the military, I had a very close girlfriend, but we split because her whole life's in Italy, mine's in America. Then getting out of the army, where I lived in Italy for 3 years. I got used to that country. And then also just the army way of life and things like that. And then completely getting unplugged from that and then plugged into civilian world, living at home. No direction, no guidance, no structure. I mean, don't get me wrong, I have a great family, and they would point me in a direction if I didn't pick one myself. But I work out. I try to get sleep. I pursue creative outlets like this. Even if I'm sad or I don't feel like it, I'll still go to the comedy club and do a set. Sometimes my creativity gets stunted because I bomb because I suck on stage, but I still go. And then, I come on here, I do my podcasts. Like, I force myself to continue to live life, even though I don't feel like it. And although I may experience depression from time to time, I move through it. And, depression in that sense is completely warranted. There, you have a reason. It's not like I was just depressed just to be depressed. It was like, no, I was depressed because my very close girlfriend just split with me and my entire life just got flipped upside down. That's why. And so I forced structure on myself, and I still have sad moments and stuff like that, but I move through it a lot quicker and I feel a lot better in general than I think I would if I just sat around in my room and just, wallowed in my misery. And, I do nice things for people too. That's something I meant to mention. I won't go into detail on that because it's not for praise or approval, but doing nice things for people helps me. And it's not entirely selfish, but it kind of is. But focusing on helping, say a family member that needs some help helps me, and it helps him too. And it's like, well, maybe that's the answer. Maybe the answer is live life and do nice things for people, and you probably won't be as depressed. Now, of course, there's people out there that are, they do have chemical imbalances and they are truly depressed and they require medication. Humans are complicated. Sometimes when you're born, you got certain screws loose. Everyone has, one or two. And maybe yours is chemical imbalance in your brain that causes depression. Totally get it. I'm not crapping on those people, but I think for the majority of us, if we would just stop focusing so much on ourselves, like, okay, we're going to die. Who cares? And we just start thinking about other people, and then we try to force ourselves to live life. You get through it, man. And I wonder if you have a similar mindset, because, we've talked privately about some of the things you may have witnessed. And I mean, you've witnessed way horrible things. You have way more reason to be depressed than I do. So how do you cope with it? Does it work? I haven't actually seen you. I don't know if you're like this big buff guy or like, do you work out? How do you cope?
Yeah, I mean, I have a structure in my life. Just like you're saying, I have a workout routine that I do on my days off, four
Yeah.
days a week. I would say that's just a small part of it. I haven't really seen myself, and maybe I am, and I'm just not recognizing it, like being super depressed from the job. There have been times in my life that I've been depressed, but I think me doing this job makes me like it's easy for me if I'm ever feeling down. It's like, what have I done today to make this world a better place? And then I think about I have the opportunity doing something that a lot of people are not able to do, and that makes me feel good.
Yeah.
It's like when there's a car crash, someone's trapped inside, or it's on fire. Like I get to be the first person there. I don't have to be. I get to be
And you
because I
view
work
it
in
as
a
a
house. Like,
privilege.
right. It is a privilege that I get to be. That's kind of. I guess going back as you asked why I wanted to do the job. I want to be the one that runs to the car, right?
Yeah.
I that was the calling. Is I feel like I want to be the guy that does the cool shit. And they're like, oh, you get to go save the day, like whatever. But yeah, I want the opportunity, and I want to be blessed enough to be that guy.
That's a beautiful perspective, man. Because like a lot of times you see videos of cops and then just kind of like roll their eyes, like, oh. And I'm sure you have those moments too. But like, just knowing that that's how you view it, man. Like, oh, most people would look at it like, oh man, I got to go to this thing. Like, I'm not, oh, dude, but you're looking at it as a privilege. And I think that's a pretty
Yeah,
positive
for some
mindset.
stuff. For some stuff.
Yeah. I'm sure when you got to pull the guy over for a freaking running a stop sign, it's like, oh my God, come on, guy.
It's not. I don't. And that's the thing. I don't have to pull over. It's not even that stuff. Like that stuff, the stuff you normally think the cops do, like whatever, like normal day, cool stuff. It's like this caller 1096. It's just like not right in the head, crazy, if you will. Not actually diagnosed, at least by me, but we're self-diagnosing here as a psycho. Um, Calls every day and is like, officer, someone is coming into my house. I bought brand new shoes. They fit me. I left the house. I came back. Now the shoes look like they're 2 weeks old and they're not mine. I'm like, okay, well, do they fit? Yeah, they fit perfectly. But someone's coming into my house and stealing my stuff and switching out for older stuff. Also, my TV stand was moved 6 inches forward. I didn't need like,
Yeah.
are you fucking kidding me? I have to deal with this.
Yeah, because you have to respond no matter what, huh?
No, that's not necessarily true, but we do. It sucks.
Yeah.
But
You
yeah,
got to deal with crazy Ricky, huh?
yeah,
Every
there's just times where it's like, oh, this guy's like, hey, I need you to do a VIN inspection because I bought this car out of state so I can register at the DMV. I'm like, okay, what kind of car? He's like, well, actually, I have 15 tractors that you need to do. Like, next hour reading VINs on a tractor, or I mean, you name it, like credit card fraud. My husband, who beat the shit out of me, or that I beat the shit out of, stole my credit card and is now using it. Like, okay, that's not my problem.
Yeah, because you guys can't do much. Like if I were to say, oh, this guy, he's you know, causing he's slandering me on Twitter. There's nothing you can do about that, right? You're there for physical issues. Like, are you physically in danger? Right?
That's civil. That's not criminal. And in fact, it was actually actually kind of funny. I went to this dude's house and he's like, "Okay, this is really embarrassing, but I was talking to this girl online, and then I sent her naked pictures of my face, entire body, and penis and balls. And then he replied said that if I don't send them a bunch of money, they're gonna blast me all over Twitter. Say this is my name, I live here, and I'm a pedophile, and I sent this picture to a minor."
Oh no.
And I'm like, he's like, what can you do for me? I'm like, nothing. This is a civil because what happened was you sent this person. I'm not saying it's a girl. It could be a dude. We don't know who it is. He's like, okay. I'm like, you sent them that photo, which means you voluntarily gave them that picture, which means they physically own that photo now because you gave it to them.
Yeah.
They own that picture. They can do with it whatever they want. The only thing that you could potentially maybe do is contact an attorney and sue civilly for, I don't know, maybe defamation, but I'm not even close to being an expert in civil law, so I have no idea.
Yeah.
But it pisses off a lot of parents too. And it's different with minors. But if it's like an 18-year-old living at their house still, it's like, this dude has all my daughter's naked pictures. I'm like, okay, hey, did you send him those photos? Yes. There's nothing I can do. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, that's got to be a tough one. I know you kind of helped me out with a friend that was going through something similar. And yeah, I mean, you told me that. I was like, man, okay. Well, that changes the ball game entirely, I guess. Because you always think that you have the rights to your photo because it's of you, but that's not the case if you send it.
Yeah. And even then, like if it's like a Snapchat screenshot, like I'm not getting into that. That is a court thing. Like you can take that to court under your own dime and they can try to decide what it is, but that is not criminal. There's no criminal intent. When there's minors, it's a different story. There's legitimately a crime, so that'll change things, but kind of Again, it depends on the circumstances.
Yeah.
But yeah, people call us for all sorts of stupid shit, like stuff that is not crime. It's all civil.
Yeah.
If you, I mean, we have animal control, but they don't work at night, so the amount of like barking dog calls and fucking noise complaints and just stupid shit. It's
And
like,
how does
oh,
that work? You usually just like walk up, like, hey, your dog's kind of going crazy. Can you like, they're complaining? Can you just like put them in the back or something? You know, like is it usually something like that?
yeah, pretty much. So the cities, this is not blanket statement, but where I work, county does not have a noise ordinance. City does. So when people call noise complaints, it's like, okay, just want to let you know there's nothing I can do about this. And they're like, really? I'm like, well, I could walk over there and ask, but I'm going to tell them the same thing. I'm like, hey, your neighbor wants you to turn it down, but I can't force you to. There is no law saying I have to. And a lot of times I've had people like, oh, I'll turn it down. Or they'll be like, no, okay, well, sweet. Thanks for letting me know there's no law. And then I come back to them like, hey, they're not going to turn it down. It's like, well, what else can you do for me? I'm like, I can't do anything for you. However, you can do something for yourself by uh, filling out a citizen's arrest, if you will, for disturbing the peace. However, if you do that, then you go to court and you need to represent yourself, and the burden of proof is on you to prove that your individual peace was disturbed by this person's actions or their dog's actions or whatever. And it's a huge pain in the ass, and I don't like doing it.
Sorry, I didn't mean to start my video there. Yeah, that's okay. So like, let's say that all right, this is one thing I wonder, and I know that this is very state dependent, probably, but in your state, if someone's like, "Yo, this guy's shooting a gun," and you go there, he's in his own property, right? Like he owns the property, but he's in a neighborhood. You know, it's like a subdivision or something, and he's not shooting in any dangerous direction. He's literally, like, just for the sake of hypotheticals, he's just shooting directly into the ground repeatedly. Is there anything that violates the law in that? Or are you allowed to shoot on your own property?
So it's all of those are ordinances. So county ordinance states that you are legally allowed to discharge a firearm on your property as long as you're doing it in a safe manner. And that is it. So that's very up to the judgment and the perception of an officer. I mean, to be fucking smart about it, you know what I mean? And most people, like, if you're living in a city place, people really aren't doing that.
Yeah.
But if you're out of county property, like at least where I live, most people have guns and they're shooting, so it's not that big of a deal. I don't know. And I guess some funny stories. They're not funny. They're actually fucking aggravating. So we had this one person. You know how gender reveals have just completely gotten out of hand?
Yeah.
So they called dispatch very smartly, which, by the way, announcement to anybody, if you're going to do anything that may raise suspicion, call dispatch, the non-emergency line. Be like, hey, I'm doing this just as a heads up. So if people call, you know what it is. So they did that.
That's
said,
actually good info. I didn't know that you could do that.
Yeah. Yep. They do it all the time. Anyways, they said, hey, just heads up, we're doing a gender reveal. We're going to be lighting a firework. So if anybody calls in, that's exactly what it is. So they light the firework. And then we start getting calls for shots fired. And I mean, dispatch, they know, like they're telling people. But anyways, they put the call out and they're like, so-and-so says that they heard a gunshot. Her husband's ex-law enforcement, and she knows what a gun sounds like. And it's just like, are you fucking kidding me? Not a human on this planet can hear the difference between a gunshot and a firework. There's no way.
I don't know. I disagree with that, but yeah.
My husband's ex-law enforcement, and he knows what guns sound like, so I do. Like, shut the fuck up.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't know. I've always found it impressive if someone's able to like hear a gunshot and then recognize like like my cousin, he's retired Army. Could have been totally wrong. We were out at a family event and we heard some gunshots in the distance. He's like, "Oh yeah, that's a 22." I'm just thinking, bro, how do you know that that's a 20? I mean, I guess it sounds like it sounds quieter maybe, but
yeah, you know what? I guess I think there is a small group of people on this planet that can tell that they're being shot at.
Yeah, and typically those are the people that have been shot at.
You can tell that something's a gunshot because they've been around it for months. You
Well,
know,
especially in America, we're very safe here.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah. You
maybe
got
that could be
people who've
argued,
been deployed.
but
They're like, oh, that's a gunshot that is not even close to being a threat, or oh fuck, like put your head
yeah.
down.
Now, I don't necessarily. Okay, so I totally believe in people's rights to own firearms and everything. But I mean, we do definitely got an issue here. I'm not saying we should take firearms. I don't know what the solution is, but I mean, I carry not because I want to feel like Billy Badass, but because I'm genuinely concerned that like some retard's gonna walk into Walmart and shoot everyone up. You know, that's why I carry. Like, no other reason. It's always hidden. No one knows I'm carrying, unless it's like family or something. But I don't make a show of it. I don't open carry. I think it's kind of dumb to open carry generally, not for a police officer, because you guys need to make a show of force. But just as a normal citizen, like, do you really want to paint yourself? You want people to know that you're the threat? No.
Yeah,
Yeah. That's my opinion. I know that there's a lot of arguments for open carry. What about you? I mean, have you ever seen a situation where it was better that the citizen, I guess maybe if they're open carrying, it kind of is a deterrent, maybe,
open
to
carrying is gay.
criminals? Sorry, say again.
I said open carrying is gay.
Yeah, because to me it feels like usually when I see someone open carrying, they're always extra. They're wearing like some marine pants or something stupid. It's like, bro, like they're totally just doing it to look tough. They're not doing it because they're
So
thinking.
there are times like open carrying. It has a place for sure. If you're going to do it in the general public, which I wouldn't recommend. I mean, like you said, bad guy comes into a place. If this ever happens, bad guy comes into a place. He's like, okay, that's the guy I need to kill first. Sweet. Um, you're
Yeah,
also offering kind of looking around, seeing what
yeah,
people got.
yeah. Maybe say like, yeah, if you pop into my family member's house, they'll give you a coffee or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, that's cool. It's cool that there's like, because what I'd like to see is like people cooperating. Like, hey, this is what you guys do. Can you guys help? Yeah, sure, man. I mean, that's cool. Because I mean, that's like the mission statement, right?
I don't remember my mission statement.
I don't remember what mine was for the infantry. I don't even know if there is like a general mission statement for the infantry, but close with and destroy the enemy, maybe.
Close with
Um,
and destroy the enemy. I thought it was a Marine Corps thing. By the way, go Army, I guess. I was pissed. We lost.
did they win?
Yeah.
They won last year. I remember I was at a base and we were like on standby for something and they put the game on this projector. And we were shocked because I think before that the Navy had been winning for like years or something, and then like the Army finally turned the
So
tables.
it's my favorite football game all year. And
I'm surprised that you watch it. It's like literally the worst two football teams ever.
well, so give you some some backstory. So, anyways, the reason why it's a favorite game is like I got Marine Corps family. I have some really close friends with the Naval Academy, so I always pull for Navy because
You bastard.
they represent. I mean, they represent the Marine Corps. That's the only thing that represents the Marine Corps, right?
Yeah.
So I root for them. They had from like 2001. They had like 14 years of beating Army,
Yeah.
and it's a rivalry. And I'm sure you already know this, but it
Oh
is a
yeah.
rivalry where it's not like Michigan, Ohio State, where they're trying to kill each other, they're cussing each other out, spitting in each other's faces. Like it is a rivalry where you want to beat them, but at the same time, like you care about that person on the other side of the line of scrimmage. You pick them up, you give them a high five at the end of the game, you shake their hand because like
Yeah.
it's not a hated rivalry. It's just like it is just a rivalry, effectively.
Yeah. I think it is ironic that the military, like the finest we have or whatever, like also the worst athletes. Or, maybe not the worst athlete, but the worst football team.
Well, there's dude, they've been ranked a couple times, all of them within the last 10 years. But anyways, the reason why I
What does
like
that mean? I don't know anything about football. What does it mean if they got ranked?
so college football, like they rank teams 1 through 25, and then everybody else just doesn't count.
Yeah. Oh, okay,
Um,
okay. So
the
they've
national
done good
ranking.
sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah, so within the last 10 years, both all Navy, Air Force, and Army have been within the top 25 of the entire nation.
Wait, the Air Force has their own team?
Yeah, the Air Force Academy, it's in Colorado Springs.
I'm surprised because it seems like the Army versus Navy is like the biggest game. I mean, aside from like the Super Bowl, and again, I don't watch football, but like at least in the military, that that's always a game everyone watches.
Right. So,
Yeah.
okay, I'll give you a little brief history lesson from a non-expert. Um, so, the Army, Navy, and Air Force academies all have football teams. They're all not very good, and they all run an offense from the 20s. Like they just refuse to adapt to how football's
I
played
knew
now.
it. I knew that's why they suck. They tried to
Yeah,
militarize a sport.
yeah. They're like, we ran this in 1920. We're never going to change the offense. Triple option every.
It worked
Uh,
this one time. It is doctrine forever.
yeah. Well, which is funny because when the team is good, like I watched Keenan Reynolds in like
Yeah.
almost beat Ohio State. And the reason is you get all these recruited, like gigantic linebackers for Alabama or Ohio State, you name a school. And then they play Navy and they have to completely change everything that they thought and have known their entire life about playing defense in football because they've never gone up against a 1920 style offense. So the whole week, it's like they're relearning the wheel. And then they get there, and I mean, everybody makes mistakes. So they start making mistakes, and Navy, all of a sudden, their line that weighs 100 pounds less than Alabama's is scoring touchdowns. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's funny because whenever people play academy schools, even like the number one ranked team in the nation, if when that like occasionally when that happens, they're like, this game is not a walk in the park. Like they're going to score on us, and it's going to be a pain in the ass, and it typically is. Sometimes they get their ass beat, but anyways, yeah, they all run the wishbone or the flex bone offense. They run a triple option. Sometimes they'll pass. In fact, Navy's touchdown pass today to put them into overtime or during overtime was their fourth completion all season. Um, so they just run every play. But anyways, there's a commander in chief trophy between all three academies, and whoever wins, like if you say your Navy, you beat Air Force and Army, you get the commander in chief trophy. And if
Yeah.
it's a three-way tie, then the team that had it the year before just retains it.
It's almost like a different league almost. Like, like military's never gonna, win the top games, but like amongst the military, it's one of the most competitive games.
You know what's sad is back in the day they did Navy. I
Really?
think Navy national championship,
Oh.
but this was like in the 50s when the best teams in football were Notre Dame and Navy. Like when
Bro, I'm
football,
I'm not to shift topics too quick, but I'm about to leave for Iowa to visit my mom for Christmas, and I was looking to see if Idaho was anywhere en route. That's how bad I am at geography from
oh, nice.
Tennessee, and I didn't realize how west you were. But yeah,
Yeah,
never mind.
we're
I was gonna
nice.
offer to get you a beer, man. I thought it'd be cool to meet up, but like, guess that ain't happening.
Okay, so 1926, Navy won the national championship for college football. They have two Heisman Trophy winners. One of them is Roger Staubach, who played for the Cowboys and is a Hall of Famer. So yeah,
Wait,
they
wait,
used to
wait.
be
He
really good
played for the
football.
Cowboys. Wait,
Yeah, yeah. So
but
he served
okay,
in, I think, Vietnam.
yeah. What do you think
So,
about that one dude that back whenever like the taking a knee during the national anthem was a thing? I don't know if it still is, but the one veteran that was in the Ranger Regiment or whatever that just like he was like, nah, I'm walking out and I'm standing. That was awesome, man. That was like viral. I don't know. I love that
yeah,
video.
dude. Well, I don't know. There's so much controversy behind this. I kind of see myself as more of a libertarian than anything, meaning like, and it's kind of ironic because I'm a cop. Um, but like, who the fuck am I to tell you what to do? Do what the fuck you want? And that's kind of the beauty about being in a country like this. You reserve the right to do whatever the fuck you want within reason, sort of.
Yeah.
I mean, as long as you're not violating law or endangering somebody else, like who cares? So yeah, you don't want to stand for the flag. That's fine. However, I think that, and I'm not saying these people don't know that, but like let's just take a look back as to what you're doing. Like your message may be this. However, the perception you're giving off is this. So either get that message straight to people, or one, show that you understand and acknowledge the fact that that flag was lifted on top of Iwo Jima or whatever you want to call it, right?
Yeah.
Or let's go back to the story of the Star Spangled Banner. Like just the hours and hours of shelling that they took where the flag never fell down. And then as soon as they captured it, they came to realize that it fell a bunch of times, except someone else would just pick it up and hold it there until they got hit by a fucking cannonball and died. Then the next person would pick it up.
It's an awesome story.
Yeah, like I don't know. I tell myself they're not kneeling for the song and for the story of the song, which is like every single American. This was not taught in elementary school. They need to be taught that because it brings a tear to my eye when I hear it. Like these weren't even military people. They're just people hunkering down in the
Farmers. Yeah.
picking up the flag and holding it there until they got their head decapitated by a cannonball and the next person would grab it. Like it was
Well, and look at what they're standing up against. The British Empire, which back
Yeah.
then was like the equivalent of us and like how
an
powerful
entire
we are.
armada of troops just shelling this. It just
Yeah.
yeah, unbelievable. And I don't know, man. I'm not going to tell people what to do, but I expect in return that they don't tell me what to do. So if I want to go out and stand for the anthem, I better not feel the even the slightest feeling that I'm going to get ostracized by my teammates. Which I have a buddy in the NFL, and he said, he's like, dude, I'm probably going to have to kneel, man. I'm like, how come? He's like, well, if I don't, since I'm not like a big player, it's probably going to be a reason for them to get rid of me and find someone of equal skill who's going to conform. I'm like,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
respect
Like
your decision, dude. 100%. He's
I
like,
rem-
I'm with you. I'm like, 100%. Do what you got to do, man. Like, I
yeah.
understand this is your dream, so do what you got to do. But
Yeah. I remember with the dude that stood, the 75th Ranger Regiment guy. His coach was like, "Well, we all agreed. We're just going to stay in here for the national anthem and then we're going to go out." And he chose to go out. I don't know why he did. Blah 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 blah. And I'm like, bro, honestly, I mean, I'm trying to keep it a little clean because I want family to be able to listen to this because I think this is probably a pretty cool podcast. But
my podcast needs to get cleaned up then.
oh no, you're good. It's just me. I just need to be clean. But but no, I mean, it's like, man, how can you say that? How can you not respect what that guy did? How he put his whole career on the line just because. Screw anyone that says that the flag is not worth standing for during the national anthem. It's like, the country's definitely strayed. We're definitely off path. We were something beautiful and maybe we're deteriorating. But the original intent, the original, I guess, a mission of the flag is a very honorable, admirable, and respectable one. Freedom, and honestly, with you as a cop, do you ever, when you pull someone over and they're black, do you ever assume that they're immediately a criminal just because they're black?
No. I forgot. I don't know. I just fucking hate everybody.
Yeah.
Well, so we do a thing called criminal profiling.
Go ahead.
It's
Sorry.
not racial profiling. And
Yeah.
criminal profiling is perfectly legal. It has nothing to do with the driver or what he looks like. It has everything to do with like, okay, I'm driving. There's a real fucked up, beat up, nasty Honda Civic. And in my training experience, I've pulled a lot of dope out of cars that look like this. So I'm going to follow it until I find a reason to stop it. And then I'm going to pull it over. So I'm not pulling it over because it's a sketchy looking car. I'm just following it and trying to wait till it gives me a reason to pull it over. You know what I mean?
Just check things out.
Yeah, because like crime is typically linked with poverty. And poverty, like you can see that in a vehicle. It sounds super jacked up, but I'm not saying I'm targeting these cars. All I'm saying is I'm gonna follow this car for a little bit and see if I see anything that's worth addressing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I mean, honestly, all you're doing is really just following them, and if they break a law, you're pulling them over. You're not pulling them over because their car looks like that. You're pulling them over because they violated a law.
Every stop has to have actually you have to have reasonable suspicion. They have to have done something.
You can't just pull them over.
Right, because then that's unlawful detention. You have to have an actual articulable reason, like, and it could be anything, anything in the vehicle code, anything like moving, speeding, whatever. That's a reason to stop somebody because then you're going to stop them. You're going to address the issue. They're detained until you're finished doing your police work in a reasonable amount of time. for what the original reason for stop was, and that's the end of it. But yeah, there's no like walk up to a car with a black guy. At least I don't see myself seeing it any different than I would with anybody else.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, I'm not saying that there isn't racism that exists, because I do have black friends that I trust very, 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 very much, that I know would not lie to me, that have told me about certain things that have happened to them. And I mean, there really are, and excuse my French if any family members are listening to this, but there are true pieces of shit out there that do discriminate against people simply based off of this, the color of their skin. But that's not, I don't believe that that's the norm. I don't think that's common, but it certainly happens, based off of what I've been told by people I trust very, 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 very much, that, they're not caught up in the propaganda. They're not caught up in some movement. They're just saying, bro, look, no, this is what happened, And so I know it happens, but I don't think it's, I don't think it happens all the time, especially with police officers. And of course, there's turds, there's bad apples with every organization that's ever existed ever. There's always a spectrum. There's the best, then there's the worst, and then there's everything in between, which is the majority. And I think the same applies to that. I don't think people just get mistreated simply because of their race. Like if you pulled some guy over and he's, respectful, maybe he's in a crappy Honda Civic, but he's respectful, and he, ran a stop sign, whatever, but he doesn't have any drugs in the car. He doesn't have like, anything crazy going on. He's just broke and he just ran a stop sign. You're not arresting that guy and locking him up in prison forever because he's black. You're locking him up, if you're locking him up, because he did something. It's a meritocracy.
I think there's
good and bad.
Yeah. I mean, I completely agree. I think there's an incorrect understanding of how, if we're just strictly talking law enforcement, how law enforcement works. I mean, I've heard, let me just preface this because, yes, people have gotten their rights violated. Black people have absolutely been targeted before. However, there have been times where I've like heard a story like, oh, this happened to me on a traffic stop. I was in the passenger seat. Driver was white, passenger was black, and he got treated like crap or something like that. And it's like, one, you're giving me your side of the story. I don't know the full picture, right? Because there could be anything that could have happened to cause that specific thing to happen.
Yeah.
So I typically take that kind of stuff with a grain of salt, because it's like, you're telling me one half. I wasn't even there to see it. So I can't just immediately pass judgment as to what went down, because there's situations where the passenger is the one who gets chained up.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
yeah.
It's just, it all entirely just depends on the circumstances of the events unfold when you're there. By the way, I remember a couple of things. So yeah, you were talking about the like security officer, just as a quick little reference, because I remember I was going to say this. So it's contact and cover officers. Contact, and sorry to cut you off, but the contact officers got 80% focus on the subject, driver in your case, and 20% focus on everything else. And then the cover officer is complete parallel opposite, where he's got 80% focus on everything else and 20% on the subject, effectively.
So like when I got pulled over, for example, the guy that came and talked to me, he's focused on the subject. The guy that's over there watching the glove compartment, watching my hands, he's not focused on the crime. He's not focused on what's going on. He's strictly focused on what I'm doing. Am I presenting a threat?
Right. So when I'm the cover guy on the passenger side of the car, I'm looking at the subject's hands, I'm looking around the car, and I'm looking for oncoming traffic.
Okay. And so that's a common tactic. That's not something unique to my city. That's something that happens all the time.
Yeah.
Okay.
When there's a second on traffic stop, like I'm constantly like a fucking monkey on crack looking behind me to see if there's some semi truck that's going to smoke us so I can warn my partner.
Yeah.
And also, like, passenger side approach is awesome. It's bad for finding DUIs, but it's good for everything else, because people don't expect you to show up on the passenger side.
Nope.
They're always looking on that side. So I walk up to a car and I look around, I peer in there before they even see me for like, I've done it for like, I don't know, 45 seconds before, just to try to see what they're going to do when they don't think I'm there. and then I'll knock on the window.
It's such an awesome tactic because first of all, I rolled all my windows down, dome lights on, so like I'm hands out the window, I because my thing is like, aside from just, trying to get out of the ticket, I mean, you're not my only friend in law enforcement. I know how stressful, that traffic stop is. I don't want the guy to be stressed out. He does a million of these. I want to be the one that he's like, chill, so I didn't notice that passenger cop until I was going into my glove department to get my insurance information. But I didn't feel intimidated. I was actually, I mean, maybe just because of, not that I have some super crazy background, I was never anything crazy. I wasn't special forces or whatever, but like, just that I do have experience where you have teamwork involving firearms. And I was actually pretty impressed with like how diligent this little crew was and how cohesive they were. I didn't even know there was a second cop involved until I was in my glove department or compartment, So, I mean, it's a great tactic, man. And if there was a gun in there and I dropped that glove compartment, there was a gun, boom, he would have been on it, or if, I was trying to reach for a gun and blast this cop, totally would have been on it. I would not have been able to blast that cop. 100% I would have been shot.
Driver's side door panel. Like in the academy, they did some training where it's like, all right, walk up, do a driver's side approach. So we walk up, normal traffic stop. Okay, same exact thing, do a passenger side approach. We walk up and there's a fucking AR-15 on the driver's side door panel, like ready to go, that you can't even see.
Okay, I have a firearm in the vehicle. How can I make you most feel comfortable if you're pulling me over?
Just keep it on you and say, hey, I've got a concealed carry and it's on my right hip and I won't reach for it.
Okay. And they do have this is one thing I didn't know until recently. During a detainment, they do completely have the right to remove that firearm from you and control it until the completion of the traffic stop, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I didn't know that. I'm glad I do now because I don't think I would have resisted. I mean, obviously I wouldn't have like physically resisted, but like I might have pushed back on that legally. I don't think, honestly, no, I would have felt the cop out. Like if the cop seemed like a pretty good dude, I would have just, cooperated, no problem. But like if I didn't know that was a right, I might have pushed back on that a little bit. Like, hey man, are you allowed to do this?
Yeah, it's because you're detained.
Yeah.
It's because you're detained, and like I said, if you're just being detained, I can do a pat search on you, a cursory search, anything within reach from your driver. That's all in play. So anything that you can reach from reasonably from your driver's seat and anything on your person. If I ask you to get out of your car, if I pat you down, I'm like, hey, what's this in your pocket? My phone. Can I reach for it? Or can I go into your pocket to get it? No. Okay, sweet. That's fine. But if I feel a knife or a gun, it's like, okay, sir, you're detained right now. And because of your safety and my safety, I'm going to remove it. I'm going to unload it. I'm going to set it on the hood of my car or hood of your car. Typically what I do is I'll take a gun. I'm like, all right, man, your magazine with your bullets is in the trunk. Your gun's back on your passenger seat.
Yeah.
And I'll let them watch.
And you unload the rounds, which I think is very smart, actually. An inconvenience for the citizen, but very, very smart for a police officer, I think.
Yeah. Anytime I take anything of value, I'm like, hey man, I have your phone. I have your wallet with your cash. It's on my dashboard. So as we're running to jail, like you can watch it the whole time.
Now, is that legal for you to remove the rounds? I mean, you're returning all the property to the citizen. However, you are messing with it. So is that, I understand why you do it and I completely agree with it, but is it legal? Like, is that just kind of like a low key thing? Like, yo,
it's not going to unload somebody's firearm because you have like I said, they're detained. And when someone's detained, I mean,
you have freedom over that firearm if they're detained.
When my lights go on to pull you over, you are detained. There's no difference between that and you being in handcuffs, sitting on the curb.
Okay, now I am an ignorant citizen, and I'm not giving a hypothetical. I am genuinely ignorant about this. You flash those lights. What am I required to do? Like, what minimal requirements am I required to meet? And then what may you ask that I am not required to comply with?
Like when I'm initiating a traffic stop?
Yeah, you pull me over for, whatever reason. What is the immediate requirements that I do not have any right to refuse you? And then what are some things that maybe you might ask just as like, yo, can you just be a good dude and help me out? That I'm not required. I would, comply, but like just for the sake of knowledge, what am I not required to comply with?
Okay, so I've already. Are we like? Have you already been pulled over?
Uh, honestly, just dress up this hypothetical however you wish.
Okay, well, you're required to pull over within a reasonable, like as soon as you can find a safe place to pull over, you're supposed to.
Okay.
So yeah, like
So it is a safe place because I have seen videos where the guy says, "Well, I'm required to pull over where it's a safe spot," and the cop's like, "No, I flashed my lights. You're required to pull over immediately." Is that incorrect? Like, say
it's
you're pulling me over on the highway,
so
and I'm like trying to just be nice, and I just want to get off the exit. I pull into a gas station, and then I stop. I'm not speeding. I slow down to show you that I'm complying with you. I pull off the exit. I go to a gas station. Is that going to piss you off, or are you like going to appreciate the fact that you don't have to conduct this traffic stop on the side of a highway?
no, not at all. Because I mean, it's easy to tell when someone's running and when they're just
Yeah.
like. I mean, we
Yeah, because
slow.
I wouldn't want to like piss them off and make them think I'm running. You know what I mean? But I would totally, just to put him at ease and make the traffic stop go smooth, and then maybe for my own benefit get out of the ticket. I'd totally go to a gas station if that's what's preferable. But I don't want to
That's
get accused of
that's fine.
running.
I would rather be in a gas station than be on the like in the middle of a road, which I've done plenty of times. It's easy to tell when someone's running and when someone's trying to find a place to pull over. There are instances of slow speed pursuit, and we could just be some guy doesn't want to pull over and is just going to keep driving, or someone
He
legitimately.
just keeps going at 30 miles an hour
Yeah,
for like an
that
hour.
happens.
Yeah.
That happens.
Yeah.
No, use your best judgment. And when we do the intro, I will preface: I'm not giving anybody legal advice, so don't quote me.
Oh, of course. Of course. Yeah. This is just a
Uh,
talk. Two friends.
anyways,
Yeah.
so okay, so yeah, pull over when we won't even say safely. Just pull over when it's most realistically feasible to
Okay.
do so.
Even if it's on the highway, or do you think it's because, like, I mean, yeah, again, I wouldn't want to get accused of running, but if I throw my flashers on and I reduce my speed and I make it clear I'm cooperating and I'm just pulling off at the next exit, if he like flashes his lights at me or something, then yeah, immediately pull over. But if, as long as he doesn't do anything different except have his lights on, then
Well,
continue action or stop.
let me give you another answer I kind of just thought of. So, if you do pull over somewhere and the cop doesn't like it, I've walked up to people or I've used my PA and said, "Hey, continue to the exit, go to the gas station. This is not a
Okay.
safe." So yes, that is an option. So
Okay, wait. So, all right. So then in that
pull.
case, should you make the attempt to pull over on the highway? And then if the officer wishes for you to go to a gas station, you can trust he's just going to hop on that PA? Or I don't know, man. Maybe it's just like you guys aren't,
I don't
used to
know. It's just
dealing
a tough
with
answer. I would
cooperative
say I would
citizens.
say just pull over. Just pull
Yeah.
over, and if the cop isn't comfortable there, he's going to tell you to go somewhere safer.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Don't overthink it. Just pull over.
Yeah.
Okay.
So when you're pulled over, you are absolutely by law required to show me your driver's license, your registration, and your proof of insurance. Anything after that, you don't have to answer questions. You don't have to do anything of that nature, unless I have probable cause.
Okay.
That meaning like, okay, oh, and you're required to exit the vehicle if the officer orders you to.
Okay. Now, let's say you're
Keep
an ignorant citizen that does not study the law, but the police officer pulls you over and he tells you to do something. You could just straight up be like, am I required to do this under law, or is this a request? And then if he answers, and like he, makes a false claim or whatever, that's all on camera because you guys are required to have your camera on 24/7, correct?
No, just
No?
anytime we contact with people.
If I ask you to turn your camera off, not that you have to, but are you allowed to?
If
If
someone
I
asked me to turn the camera off, I probably wouldn't.
I'm the only reason I would is like maybe I just want to have like a talk with you where I want you to have the freedom of your discretion, but I don't want you to feel like you have to do something because you're on camera, you know?
Well, no, I won't. I won't. I won't talk about that. I'm not going to go into that.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah.
No, no, no,
I'm
I
just
was just
picking your brain, man.
so if someone asks turn the camera off. Like, there's no fucking way. I'm not gonna put myself into a position where I did something where I voluntarily turned my camera off and then something fucked up happened. Like, there's no chance. So
But
because
you
I
can completely
I
use
have
your
no chance.
discretion on camera.
What was that?
You can completely use your discretion on camera.
Yeah, officer discretion is part of the job.
Okay. All right.
It's recognized by the courts. It's recognized by the supervisors. There's your camera's on. There's plenty of stuff I do with my camera on where I forget to even turn it off and I look like an idiot. Doesn't matter.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So
Yeah, I'm just asking all
Pennsylvania,
these little questions here. Just these are things that I probably wouldn't even actually think of if I was getting pulled over, but I got a cop
yeah,
on the podcast.
well,
Kind of want to
they're
ask
good questions.
these questions. Yeah.
What was I going to say? Oh yeah, so Pennsylvania v. Mims is national court law or case law rather that states that if a law enforcement officer orders you to exit your vehicle, he does not have to have a reason to ask you to exit the vehicle. You just have to comply.
Okay.
Like I could walk up to a grandma who was going 3 over the speed limit and be like, okay, ma'am, exit the vehicle. And they're required to by law. I don't have to have a reason to ask you to do that.
Now, in regards to profiling, if you pull over a grandma, do you have any concern? Or are you like, this is probably just like, have you ever had an old lady like pull a gun or like do anything crazy? Or no, they're usually pretty chill.
No, I mean, profiling when it comes to like me enforcing something is completely different than perception of risk. Because you're kind of going down the path of Graham v. Connor, which is more case law.
Yeah, explain that if you don't mind.
So Graham v. Connor is effectively me not being an expert say it. It's like the amount of force used based on actual perceived threat, what's reasonably known to me at the time, and like officer ability versus subject. I guess those aren't all the points, but it's just I guess is the best way I understand it. So if I'm pulling over grandma and she gets out of the car and starts walking towards me, my level of threat perception and force is going to be different, especially if I start fighting her, than if I pull over Mike Tyson and I know it's Mike Tyson and he gets out of the car and starts walking towards me because I know Mike Tyson fucking kill me with one punch.
Yeah. You
What I
better
mean?
keep your distance, Mike Tyson.
So yeah, if I get into a fight with Mike Tyson or like Sam Fisher from Splinter Cell, lethal force is going to come a lot faster than it would be with somebody else.
Okay. And that makes
and
sense. Yeah.
And that's something like, okay, I'm fighting a 5'5", 150-pound male. We're fighting, we're duking it out. I'm at the point of complete exhaustion. And he gets the advantage over me. Lethal force is, according to Graham v. Connor, justified. Because I'm at the point where I cannot go any further without like passing out from pure exhaustion.
Yeah.
And that applies to female cops because 90% of the time they're going to be out on somebody who's bigger than them and stronger than them, and they can articulate that. If I get in a fight with this dude, he's going to mash my face in and kill me. So lethal force is going to come faster than it would with, I don't know, say Shaquille O'Neal fighting a big dude. Like he reasonably can probably duke it out, try to go to tools without just immediately getting overwhelmed and getting his face kicked in.
Yeah. Okay.
And then the biggest one is what the officer like reasonably knows at the time the force was used. You know what I mean? So that goes to like cell phones. When someone like quick draws a phone out of their pocket, that's exactly what that's for. Where they think, oh, it was a gun, but then everyone's
like that cop that shot the dude that was reaching, like he had earbuds in his ears, he had a hood on, and he was reaching into his pocket to turn off the music so that he could hear what the cop was saying, and he got shot.
I'm not going to go into specific court cases, but like that's effectively kind of what that's covering in that law. So when the court is looking at it, they're saying, okay, here's your situation, here's the totality of the circumstances, but we cannot look at, oh, he pulled a phone out of his pocket and you shot him. We have to look at, this is the call comments. You came here, you were told this. So now you have a heightened expectation going into this call. Okay, you're going to be a little bit more cautious because this guy might be armed. This is this person's history. When I was looking it up, roll into the call, I know this person's had issues with fighting with cops before. And now I'm on with him. I'm being cautious as I can. And then he quickly reaches into his pocket and grabs something. Like, because of all those circumstances stacking up, that's where my mind went to. And as I'm explaining that in my report, the court's going to look and say, okay, was that reasonable? Yes or no?
Yeah.
So that's kind of how Graham v. Connor works. Just to touch again, it's the.
And you guys are educated on these cases, or is this personal research that you've done yourself?
This is all through the academy.
That's actually reassuring to know that they that they go that in depth.
Oh, there's so much case law we have to go over. Yeah, so that's my understanding of it. I'm not totally right. No cop is.
Okay. So if you're in a very high risk situation, police are involved. You don't want to get shot. What are some absolutely do nots for a citizen that's getting confronted by a police officer when in a high risk situation? Reach in the pockets, I assume. Correct?
It's just such a
common sense thing.
It's just such a blanket. Like, there's so many different circumstances that need.
The reason I ask it, because I know that's such a common sense thing. It's like, to me, if I get confronted by police, do not reach in your pockets. You know what I mean? Hands in the air. Let the police do whatever they want to do. But there's still that dude that's going to reach in his pockets and, try to turn off the music. So, like, what it may seem common sense to us, but like for, the average dude listening, I guess, one of the 30 all across the world that's actually going to listen to this podcast, what is something they shouldn't do? Like what? Yeah.
I'll say what's something.
Get on the ground. Is that the safest thing to do?
I'll answer it that way.
Yeah.
The cops, one, should make as big of an effort possible to ask and try to physically assure that there's no weapons in the situation. Because if I've checked, be like, hey man, do you have any weapons in your pocket? Don't reach for them. He's like, no. Or yes, I have a pocket knife. I'm like, okay, I'm going to pull it out of your pocket. Or can you turn out your pockets while we're talking? Keep your hands out of your pockets the whole time we're talking, so that you address that as quickly as you can. There's situations where you can't. But if you immediately address that, then my level of fucking paranoia has come way down, because I'm now reassured that this guy doesn't have weapons on him. So it's on the cops just as much as it is on the citizens. So as an officer, a deputy, or trooper, you got to do your best job to assess the situation and ensure that you're safe before you start doing the rest of what you're there for. And then look out for citizens squaring off. Like, if anybody's tensing up, looking away from you, or getting into a bladed stance like they want to box you, they're going to fight you or run. So don't do that.
Okay.
Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah, no, absolutely, yeah.
Because like I've been standing there talking to people. I'm like, hey, why are you squaring off on me, dude? And then it just explodes.
Okay, so what? All right, I'm getting into the psychology of the situation. So if you're a police officer, you arrive, and I know these are very complex questions, and a lot of these are gray area. So I'm not going to hold you to any answer or anything like that. We're just two buddies just fucking talking about your job. But like, where's the decision point when it comes to intimidation versus de-escalation? Like, do you ever arrive on a situation and you're like, okay, if I try to de-escalate, that's going to make me look weak. This guy's going to try to exploit that and take advantage. I need to intimidate. So I'm going to bring 4 officers. We're all going to have our hands on our gun. We're going to have our guns drawn. Like, is there ever something like that? Like where intimidation is actively used as a strategy to de-escalate?
Is not a strategy.
No?
Ever. So
okay.
It may be perceived as intimidation, but the lowest level of force that an officer can use is being in his uniform, just being there effectively. That is the lowest level of force.
Just being present.
If I show up to a situation, like let's say a fight with school kids, me just arriving may make the situation stop, right?
Yeah.
That's a level of force. Um, but our mantra is ask, tell, make. So, sir, do you mind taking your hands out of your pockets? Take your hands out of your pockets, and then we're gonna make him take his hands out of the pockets.
Are you required to address people by their preferred pronoun? Sorry if that's a loaded question. I didn't mean to.
I don't know, dude. I probably would. Just, I mean, my job's to be professional and courteous. So yeah, if they're like, I'm not a, I mean, I'm gonna call them what I see, and then
Yeah. And then if they tell you,
like, I'm not a ma'am, I'm a whatever, and then I would say, okay, whatever, please do this for me, because it's not my job. Like, I don't have a political opinion when I'm working.
yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah,
And if me calling them whatever they want to be called by is gonna make my life easier, then I don't give a fuck.
yeah. I think that's fair.
On a personal level, if I'm not working, like, sorry, buddy. If it looks like a duck, quacks like a duck, it's probably a duck.
All right, Torch, are you ready for a really stupid question?
I can't
take a swig. Take a swig.
There we go.
Right now. Cheers. Okay. Can't believe I'm asking. I already know the answer. Okay, so there's airborne firefighters. Are there airborne police officers?
No.
I told you it was dumb.
So gangster.
That would be awesome, though, right? You imagine jumping on a burglary.
Well, yeah, but airborne assault includes fast roping, right?
Well, no. Airborne is jumping from high performance aircraft with it's a static line jump. You don't think about it. You just jump. Automatically, your parachute gets pulled. Unless something goes wrong, you have a reserve. And then yada yada yada. You know,
right? But isn't the 101st Airborne Assault and all they do is fast roping and other stupid shit? They're not actual
airborne. They're not real airborne. They're air assault. They focus on helicopter insertions. Ranger Regiment, for example, they focus on both, whereas we would focus on purely airborne. We're not trained in the slightest when it comes to air assault. Although there may be soldiers there that went through that training, but the unit's not focused on that. If that
so that's what I'm saying. Like, we would, I guess you could call it airborne assault, because there are probably special units. I bet you LAPD does, like, fast roping on helicopters and stuff.
Bro, if your house is getting fast roped on, you better just lay on the ground.
Yeah. Well, dude, all those California cities, like, you can get an airship anywhere in like 8 minutes.
Is there rivalries between agencies? Like, I mean, obviously, but like, is there rivalries between, say, like you and a California cop? Your jurisdictions don't overlap, but this guy thinks he's Billy Badass, and he shows up to your force to like try to sign up. Does he think he's a rock star, and like everyone treats him like that because he has way more experience or whatever? Or is it like, nah, screw you, you're at the bottom of the barrel with the rest of us. We don't care what you've done.
Do you mind I ask what city you work in? Actually,
I'm in Kingsport, Tennessee.
Kingsport. So is there a Kingsport Police Department?
I can't answer that honestly, because I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, let's just say, like,
it's a very small now. Okay. If I'm getting a medical class from some pararescueman, I'm going to take that so much more. Yeah, in Italy. That's fine to say. If I'm getting a pararescue class I'm getting a medical class from a pararescueman in Italy, I'm going to take that so serious, versus like a medic giving a class, even though I shouldn't. Same knowledge, maybe the pararescueman has more experience and he like has more advanced knowledge, but I'm still like, yo, this guy's a savage, bro. And that's basically how the LAPD is viewed. Or maybe NYPD or some of the more action cities, I guess. That's how they're viewed in the police world.
I kind of. That's the weird thing, because like I don't necessarily, after talking to some of the LA cops and some of the freedoms that they're restricted to, like they have way less freedom than the stuff that we get to do, which is just weird. I mean, maybe I'll try to shoot for one that you'd understand, but it's like, oh, this guy from like the 82nd Mountain or the Big Red One or the 82nd Airborne came over and taught us this. Like, this is so cool. It's like, okay, who the fuck are these retards that do the exact same job that we do? Like, who are they to tell us anything better?
Yeah.
But I mean, I realize they have a big budget, they have a lot of training, and they do a lot of national stuff. So I mean, it makes sense. But after talking to some of the LA guys, it's like they can't even have patrol rifles in their car unless they get specifically like blessed and qualified to have one. And like,
Absolutely not, man. You guys should be loaded to the teeth, bro. If you roll up on a active shooter situation, you should already have that AR-15 right in the back.
well, so in LA, it's more of like a supervisor kind of tool because for us, we all get blessed, we all get trained to have it. But their regular base cops over there do not get a rifle.
Okay.
They have to put in for it, ask for special permission, get granted the special training. It's not a standard issue item.
All right. It seems like you guys, your primary weapon of choice is the sidearm. However,
No, it's not.
it is not. Okay. So you always have like a rifle in the back. You respond to a burglar. You're not going in there with a pistol. You're going in there with a rifle, right?
Okay, so there's two things here. One, your sidearm is all it is a tool that allows you to fight your way back to your rifle. That's all it is.
Okay.
And two, you will bring your service rifle to any situation where you have a reasonable expectation of getting into a gunfight.
Okay. Well, wait a minute. You said you bring your rifle. What does that mean? Like you don't already have it in your car? Do you have to go sign it out of some armory at the police department?
No, you just sling it over your shoulder and
so you do have it. You do have it.
Get out of your car with it on you. But I mean, bring it because like you're driving to the call, but then you park and then you handle the job on foot.
Okay, so you kit up though, right? Like I know some police officers wear vests, some don't. But like if you're responding to a burglar, you got a vest in the back you can toss on and then grab that rifle, go be the police, like you say.
Yeah, we all wear vests.
All the time or only when you're responding to certain situation?
All the time. They issue us level 2. Some agencies issue level 3. I currently wear a level 2 soft body armor in the front and back.
Level 2 good for 5.56 and 45 and stuff like that?
No, it's just handgun ammo only. But I have a ceramic SAPI in the front and back that's covering just the vital organs that will stop. I think it's a level 3 plus, so it'll stop up to 30-06, but it's stop like 1 or 2 rounds before it starts to fail.
Okay. Yeah, that's fair.
But I mean, that's not like SWAT dudes got steel plates or big ceramic plates. Like patrol, it's just not feasible to be wearing that all day. And 90% of the shootings, and that's just a rough estimate. A lot of the shootings in law enforcement are just handgun, like when cops get shot. So, but yeah, if you have a reasonable expectation to get into a gunfight, you bring a rifle, or if you're dispatching an animal, you will use your rifle. Can you still hear me?
Oh, sorry, but my mic was actually physically muted. Yeah, nice. I can hear you. Okay, yeah, so like our vests usually like in the Army are rated for, I don't know why I say usually, they're always rated for 7.62. So like it could take a 7.62 round and it's good to go. But a lot of NCOs and people that have gotten experience and stuff, they don't really agree with the side plates thing, because if you get hit from a side angle, theoretically it could bounce off that plate and cause more damage to your internal organs versus, it just passing through. What about you? Do you have a personal preference? Do you like take your side plates out, or do you keep them in?
Well, so we don't have side plates. Like if you're just talking about the soft body armor, it just wraps around to the sides. There are options like with like the actual plate carriers that they have, like with the shoulder bicep guards and the fucking gooch guard and stuff like that. But like I played sports, played football, played hockey. I didn't wear a fucking cup or lacrosse. Like I didn't wear a cup. I accepted the fact I'm probably going to get hit there, but I never did. And I'm kind of the same mindset. I'm like, I'm going to wear to cover my vital organs, but I'm not putting on any of this extra uncomfortable shit because I just don't care. Like if I'm going to get shot, I want to get shot comfortable. Hopefully outside that aren't guarded, you know.
Yeah.
I think it's kind of, if I ever got shot, I'd probably change my mind, but that's probably not going to happen. The likelihood of that happening is slim, and hopefully it doesn't.
It's crazy, man. I remember when I was 16, I went to this church event. Um, and it was hosted at a retired police officer's house. And he said he's luckily never had to draw his firearm in his entire line of work. And I mean, back then I was like, oh, that's cool. And I thought that was normal. But now I'm actually kind of surprised. Like, how can you be in it that long and you never had to draw your firearm once?
Yeah,
You think he's bullshitting?
I raised my eyebrow there, man.
Yeah, yeah. I don't blame you, honestly, because like what is that, 30 years, right? For a police officer? That's how long it takes to retire. You never drew it once. It seems a little sketch.
I mean, maybe. I don't know. Maybe he was just like a fucking pogue.
That's true.
No, they get drawn in like quite frequently, more than you think, and it's not because I think maybe they get drawn more now. I don't know, but it's just for safety. Like you stop out on a DUI, get to the crash, the guy's gone.
Now I see videos of police chases and things like that, and it seems so, not always, but it seems so disorganized a lot of times. Like there's 30 cops and one dude. Like, how could you not have stopped this 3 hours sooner? Why is it going on for 4 hours? You got 30 of you, and there's one of the bad guy. I mean, okay, so here's my theory. The reason why it takes so long for police to finally make that stop is because there's so many safety considerations. Like they can't do certain things because it would put the public at risk. Would that be a correct assumption on my part? Or
you could say that, or you could just call them pussies. But yeah, but no, not to,
got to be the police, right?
not to throw shade. That's 100% a thing. So it's all the supervisors, the people in charge, are trying to weigh every consideration to not endanger the public. So sometimes they go on for that long because that might be the safest option, just to like wait for the guy to run out of gas. Like who knows, you know? But you're not going to pit a car in a school zone or in a big intersection with a bunch of people unless they're shooting at you. Then there's a completely different story.
Okay.
Now, just when you ask yourself a question about law enforcement, like think about the priorities of life I told you about, which is safety of innocent bystanders, safety of the specific victim, safety of the officers, then safety of the suspect.
Okay. Now to shift gears, we talked a lot about police work, and
anything else, dude? We can talk about fucking guns, like. Here, let's do it.
Yeah, we talked a lot about police work, and by all means, man, if you got anything you want to get out there while you're here, by all means.
Two funny calls.
Yeah, please.
So, okay, I remember one of them. What was the other funny one?
Yeah. Okay. Well, and I'm not trying to wrap this podcast up, by the way. I was actually about to shift gears, but
no, that's fine. I got all that. So.
No, go ahead though. I want to hear it. I like funny stuff.
We're talking about like people being potentially armed, me asking if they're armed, which is something I ask almost every time. So I showed up to this call in this house. It was a family fight. Nobody wanted to press charges, so that's it. All misdemeanor crimes, no felonies. Anyways, talking to this guy. He's, like I said, 1096, not diagnosed. So I'm just, based on the way he's acting, he's seeming like he's not entirely right in the head. I'm like, I walk into the bedroom. He's hiding under the bed. I'm like, hey, sir, like, come here, talk to me. So he gets out of the bed and he immediately just
wait. He was hiding under the bed.
Yeah, it was like I could see him.
Wait, what? He was hiding under the bed. So wait. So you responded to this call. Did you have to kick the door? Like, how'd you get into the house?
Okay. So it's not that cool. So neighbor calls, says 2 people are fighting in the backyard. Like, show up, knock on the door. Old lady comes out. She's like, yeah, it's my husband and my son-in-law. We come in and talk to him? Sure. So we walk in.
This sounds like some real redneck shit, man.
I spoke to her husband. He's like, I don't know, a little bloody. I'm like, hey, where's the other guy? He's like, oh, he's in the bedroom. So I walk over there. and he's hiding under the bed, but I see his feet sticking out. I'm like, hey man, come here. I can see you. And this is where he gets, so he gets up and just immediately gets sent through the roof, like just starts screaming and yelling. I'm like, dog, like, are you like, do you have any weapons on you? He's like, no, I don't have any fucking weapons on me. And he immediately pulls his pants down all the way down to his ankles and takes his shirt off and is completely nude in front of me. He's like, see, I don't have any weapons on me. I'm like, that's one way to do it. Jesus.
He just pulled his pants down, man.
Wiener flopping around everywhere. It was pretty funny.
You said you had two. Make me laugh again, man. What was the other one?
I suppose. Sometimes we like be driving around, stop into like a church parking lot or something to, I don't know, eat some lunch, and there's a car back there. So I'll go up to the car. Sometimes it's just people hanging out. So I've seen people hotboxing, but like frequently it's
Hotboxing at a church?
no, in like in their car in the parking lot.
Okay.
But frequently it's people fornicating. So
Oh,
I come up. Sometimes it's juveniles. Sometimes it's adults. Just to, I mean, you know, kids do it in the car. So I
yeah.
roll up and I walk up to the car. I light it up in the spotlight and stuff. I get up there and I see a girl laying down on the floor and a dude laying down in the back seat with his eyes closed, like I'm a or something.
Like they were just taking a nap.
Like they're trying to not move. I'm like, hey, can you see me? And he's like, I'm like, can you hear me? He's like, yeah. I'm like, get your fucking clothes on, get out of the car. Those are funny. That's not that great of a story, but it's funny because when you like, if juvenile, you can't release them until you've like talked to their parents and they give like, okay, you can let them go or I'll come pick them up.
Mm-hmm.
So it's funny because sometimes I'll ask like the girl will be like, hey, do you want me to talk to your mom or your dad? And she's like, my mom, please.
Is it usually that's like the go-to for a girl? Like, yeah, talk to my mom.
They never want to tell their dad.
Yeah.
One last night, actually this morning, if you will. It was two adults, but they're getting it on in the car, and I walk up, and the dude's like, "Hang on, we're naked." I'm like, "All right, bro." And it was just funny because he was super cool about it. And I'm just talking to him, I'm like, "Yeah, man," because I'm waiting for dispatch to come back with their driver's license return before I let them go. They're in an area they weren't supposed to be after dark, so that's why they were quote unquote detained, kind of.
Yeah.
But anyways, I'm like just trying to create conversation so we're not sitting there in awkward silence. I'm like, it's getting cold out, man. Like the weather's getting bad. He's like, not in this car, it ain't. Like it probably stinks in there too, huh? He's like, oh yeah.
Okay.
A really good one. I can't remember what it was though.
No, I will go ahead and shift gears. We talked a lot about police work, but you are a buddy, so like I kind of want to hear this too. I've asked a lot of people on this podcast, but okay, so say I could sell you a ticket for $500 that will put you anywhere in the world for 2 weeks. You could go to multiple places you want. You could you could go to as many places that you would like, and you could do whatever you'd want to do. The ticket costs $500. It grants you everything you want. What would you do and where would you go? Anywhere in the world.
Is North Korea an option?
Yeah. Wait. Is it North or South Korea? That's the problem.
It's North.
Okay, fine. North Korea.
No, I don't know. I think it's kind of a joke. Well, first of all, and I'll come back to this in one sec. Have you seen the ski resort in North Korea?
No, actually. Is
There's a
really
YouTube
good?
video of a professional American snowboarder, and he hits the ski resort, and he's like, "Dude, these slopes are badass." Anyways, look it up on YouTube. It's kind of cool. Anywhere I could go for $500.
Yeah.
For 2 weeks.
2 weeks, as many places you want. Do whatever you want to do. Where would you go? What'd you do?
Okay, well, there's a lot of things that I want to do. Like, there's stuff that I want to do. Like, I'd like to go see the U.S. Air Force Museum. I'm not going to spend my $500 to go anywhere voucher for that. Oh, by the way, if you didn't already know, I'm kind of like I'm a self-proclaimed military aviation expert. However, I'm nowhere near an expert. Like I'm very fascinated by it, and I like to
But
learn
you
about
are
it.
very much self-proclaimed.
Self-proclaimed, 100%. I got family members that are fighter pilots, so I grew up around it.
And they're
Anyways,
like, "Shut up, Torch," and you're like, "Yeah, but I got it, the internet."
yeah, I'm like, hey, I heard this from someone who actually flew the plane, dickhead. Shut the fuck up. Anyways, I would say either Austria.
That's an interesting choice.
I would
Okay.
like to see Austria. So I don't have any guilty pleasures because I'm not ashamed of anything I do. But I will say, like, one of my guilty pleasures is Sound of Music. That is such a good fucking movie.
That's definitely a guilty pleasure, Torch. You shouldn't feel proud of that.
So yeah, so I actually saw like a vacation. It was like the Sound of Music tour, and they took you through like all the spots in the movie, and then you got to go see a bunch of castles. I think that would be really cool.
Oh wait, jokes aside, Sound of Music, was that recorded over in Austria? Is
Yeah,
that why? Okay.
yeah, yeah. It was all filmed there. That's the whole point.
Okay.
Uh,
That's a cool that's a good idea.
yeah, I'd like to do that, or I would like to go to Nepal and at least I probably wouldn't climb Everest, but at least hike to base camp.
Okay, I'm a all right. I know I'm gonna sound like an ignoramus for this, but where exactly is Mount Everest located? Like what
Mount
country is
Everest
that?
is on the border of China, India, and Nepal.
DePaul's a country, not a city?
Yeah, Nepal is a country. So, but let me
Wow.
confirm. I know it's on the border of
So
China
ignorant.
and Nepal. In fact, the mountain actually like is divided by the countries. But
Yeah.
let me confirm on my map before I sound like an
Okay.
idiot.
No, you're good, man. Because like I don't know the geography of Nepal. I've never even heard of that country actually. Um,
Dude, Nepal. So it's a really small country. Famous for having the biggest mountain range in the world. However, they actually have like there's like Nepalese machine guns like that have been developed by their own country from
yeah.
like the 1800s. They're pretty cool. All right, let's see. Um,
Yeah. Side note: one of the coolest bars I think I ever went to was in Latvia, and you could play with retired guns basically while you were drinking.
that
Obviously they couldn't
sounds
be
so
shot.
gangster.
Yeah, and it was like old guns too, like from like World War II, one, and then like modern era. You know, they just had guns that weren't functional, but you could play with them while you were drinking.
Yeah.
It was so cool.
Okay, so this map's not giving me a good one, but like directly through the center of the mountain, for the most part, is the border between Nepal and China.
Okay. So it's very
Also,
close to the to China.
yeah, it's
Okay.
literally in China and like right on the southwestern border.
Okay.
Um, Speaking of China, I would really like to see the Great Wall. If I had to like make a trip, I would probably do. I have no interest in going to France. I'd probably do the Mediterranean and Austria. That's probably what I would do.
Okay. That's interesting. So the catch is, and I know you're a police officer and you're a professional, so you're pretty well paid. But me and a lot of my buddies, we're pretty freaking broke. So the catch is, it is $500, but it's 500. You gotta buy that ticket every month. And if we do it for 12 months, we set $500 aside. You'll have 6 grand. And where can you not go in the world and do whatever you want for six? I mean, yeah, you can't like do whatever you want, but you could do a lot of fun stuff and go pretty much wherever you want to go for 6 grand. So that's the catch. Um, my buddy Dre, he was
North
on the puck.
Korea.
Yeah, in North Korea. Okay, and then to Nepal.
Oh, I forgot to say this too. Um,
Yeah.
so prior to the Poland War happening, I was actually looking up cruises in Russia, and there's a couple cruises down the Volga River that look phenomenal. Apparently, Moscow in the summer is gorgeous. I've been looking at a lot of pictures of it, and it looks absolutely spectacular. And I'd really like to go see the Red Square.
Well, Russia's actually. I mean, I don't really have any credible source for this, but to my knowledge, it's actually not that unsafe to visit Russia. I don't know about the current climate, but Andrew Schultz, I believe, is the comedian's name. You know, me being into comedy, I kind of follow a lot of these guys. He went to Russia and did a whole tour making fun of Putin. And I was like, bro, how did you not die?
Yeah,
You
that's
know?
weird.
Yeah, yeah. So, but I mean, to me, if you can go do a comedy tour in Russia making fun of Putin, you could easily go just visit Moscow and just look at the sights and stuff. I don't think Russia really cares. I feel like their economy's so bad, they kind of want tourism as much as possible,
Yeah,
you know?
I don't
So,
think they would fuck with Americans either, unless your name is Brittany Griner. Yeah, I
yeah.
take it back. They
I
probably would
think
fuck with Americans.
yeah, I think you I don't know. I think it's in your best. I think you have a vested interest if you're Russia to encourage as much tourism as you can and ensure that everyone's treated well and is safely, you know, exited.
Yeah, it's like
But,
Mexico. Kind of.
yeah,
Like
like
the
Cancun and
cartels
shit.
do not fuck with the tourist resorts whatsoever.
Yeah. It's interesting, man. Okay, so one thing I kind of want to get back to on more of a serious topic, not in regards to police work, because I think we kind of talked that at nauseum. But um, you mentioned that during the Christmas season, you're a religious, or okay, not that you're a religious man. You're closest to God during the Christmas season. So would you consider yourself a religious person, or maybe not religious, but you have a relationship with God, and that may or may not help you cope with some of the atrocities you witness on a regular basis?
Hang on, I'm peeing. Yeah, you mentioned places to go. Jerusalem's on that level, and then just kind of kick back into what you were saying. Christmas time is like the closest I feel with God, which is true. However, Easter is, I would say, equally as close, but in a different way. And then you can ask me your question. I'll try to dive in from there.
Ah, so Easter, huh? Okay. Well, no, so I have had trouble with, my Christian faith. Um, I would say that I fell off the path probably around 19. And then, especially in the army, I went through a very alcoholic phase myself. But then getting out of the army and kind of thinking back and going through everything, man, I don't know. I read the Bible now. I pray for people, people I care about, and it feels right. I'm not saying that like logically it makes sense, but at least it feels right, you know? What about you?
So I'm not a religious expert, and
Yeah. Do you pray before you go into some crazy situation, you know?
no,
No? Okay.
no, I pray when I put my head on my pillow at night, and occasionally during the day, from time to time, if there's something that's on my mind or something that's happening. Yeah, so my faith grew up Christian. Always went to church. Always went to Sunday school. Never really wavered, but I never felt like it was like I'm Christian because this is just how I'm raised. And then I went to I had a moment. I was like 10 years old, and I can't remember the context to it, but effectively it was like the Jesus take the wheel moment. Um, I was just like, I'm done. Like I accept your will and take over. Like I'm giving you the driver's seat of my life. And I felt this like overwhelming sense and feeling of warmth come over me and happiness. Nothing that I can ever describe. Like I felt warm, physically felt warm. It was really weird. And I've attributed that to being in the presence of God directly. So with that, I maintain faith. I perceive the Bible in a way that makes sense to me. I follow the Bible as I follow God as bestly as I humanly can. I make mistakes. I ask for forgiveness. Don't intentionally make mistakes. Um, and that's pretty much the gist of my faith. I ride around with it. I'm not Catholic. I was baptized Catholic, but my mom gave me a St. Christopher's medal, so I have that in my vest when I drive around every day. And I'm just pretty. I'm open minded, and I'd say one of the things that people kind of when they question you why you're a Christian, I'm like, dude, I can't tell you why I'm a Christian. I can't tell you that you should be, but at the end of the day, religion, minus a couple, teaches good values and makes people good, better people.
I agree. He's like, even if you don't agree with the religion, like I've always believed, even when I was struggling with the faith, that Christianity is not a bad route, even if it's not true. Because I mean, like, what's teaching you? Be honest. Don't kill. Don't steal. I mean, like, what it's teaching you to be a good person. Like to really well, yeah. I guess I kind of hit it on the head there. Just be a good person.
Yep. And like at work and stuff, I just don't do it because I know he's with me. He's watching over me, and if it's my time to die, then I'll die. I just don't question it.
Yeah.
Just live my life as best as I can. I try not to make things too complicated.
Now without prying too hard, and only if you're comfortable with answering, have you ever lost someone in the line of duty that you were close to?
No,
Okay.
no, we haven't lost a cop in my area in a long time.
Any close calls?
Yeah, but nothing that was like if you took a step to the left, you'd be dead. Like car crashes and
Oh,
stuff.
okay.
We had a ISP dude, a trooper, get hit by a car on a traffic stop, and he's pretty jacked up, but I think he's going to pull through. My particular agency is, I don't think we've lost anybody. We may have. At the academy in at the capital of the state, there's a big wall that honors every officer of the state that's lost their life in the line of duty, starting back to like 1820 or something really old. The most recent one was a kid. He was 21 years old, and he got ran over by another cop running code. They're up in the mountains, so windy roads. The other cops running lights and sirens to this crash and came around the corner and ran him over and killed him.
That's got to be the worst when it's one of your own.
Yeah, especially when, like, can you imagine being the guy who hit him?
Jeez, man. Yeah, that's rough.
But no, I've been very fortunate. We haven't lost anybody. Hopefully, we won't. Likely won't. We're pretty good at our jobs. Risk is something that happens, but we do things really smartly. So,
yeah,
it might happen. It's gonna suck if it does. I was actually talking to my brother-in-law, who's a infantry army guy who's in Afghanistan.
Nice.
I'm like, dude, like he's drawing parallels to my job and his. I'm like, yeah, but I can't see a comparison, man. And here's the reason why. Like, I've seen a lot of dead people. There's situations where we've inflicted that kind of stuff onto people. Not me personally. I've never shot anybody. But we don't know them. And you lost your buddy that you've been with for 9 months. Like, that's infinitely worse. You know what I mean? Like, I can look at a random person and be like, oh, okay, well, this person's dead. Like, whatever, fuck them. It's just another person.
Well, and it's more than that, man. It's not just the 9 months on deployment, but like if you think about it, you all went through basic training. You all went through. I mean, if you're an airborne unit, you went through airborne school. You guys are training all the time together. You eat together, you sleep together, all that stuff. And then you go on deployment together. Some dude kicks it, and it's like, I'll tell you though, man. I mean, I don't know about deployment stress, but garrison stress, which is arguably incomparable to what you would experience on a deployment. I don't mean to make that case, but there's suicides, man. And I had a dude that I was not very close to. I will not say that I was very close to him. But I was pretty good friends, and killed himself, and honestly was under the influence of alcohol. At least that's what they told us. He was heavily under the influence of alcohol, and then in the military, they do a lot of like suicide prevention classes because it's so rampant, and it's usually led by like a chaplain or something. And the chaplain was saying that most suicides that happen and one interesting thing was that, and I'll come back to my original point, but it was that Sorry, I'm just trying to process my thoughts. It was basically that suicide is continuing on the upward trend, regardless of the fact that we're in a decreased amount of combat. So, combat is not necessarily directly correlated to suicide, because the suicide levels continue to go up regardless of, um, the combat that the military is currently experiencing. So that raises the question, like, okay, so if it's not the combat, what is it? Like, why are people killing themselves?
Is it lack of combat? To be honest,
Well, no, I wouldn't
that's
say that
it.
that's suicide. I wouldn't say that that's what causes suicide, but that's certainly um a degradation in morale. We almost feel like fake soldiers in a sense because we haven't been deployed. We have not gone and seen combat. It's almost like you feel like a fraud. Like you wish, yeah, I mean, it's not like you want to go kill people, but you want to be seen as like the real thing. And the only way you get that is by experience.
Yeah, it's like the desert storm disease, I think is what they called it.
Oh, I didn't realize that they had labeled it. Would you say the same as, I don't know if the same could be applied to police because I feel like you're thrust into situations so often that if you aren't exposed to that danger, you will be soon enough. And
Um,
yeah.
well, I don't even know if I'm comfortable saying this off the record.
All right, so we're back. Um yeah, man, it's something I think it applies to all lines of work. It's just more extreme and, stuff that is dangerous, like perhaps a police officer's line of work, where maybe you don't feel like necessarily you've actually fulfilled that role if you haven't experienced the worst that that role has to offer, perhaps. Um, I get that, but we will change gears here a little bit because you and I are obviously in a different state of mind at the moment, or I am. So let's go ahead and shift gears a bit. Torch, how much do you bench?
Can I go back real quick?
Yeah, please.
So I was talking to some military dudes, some fighter pilots, and they're like, "It's a cool job, but you never actually get to fucking kill anybody, like get in dogfights and stuff. You never get to do anything you train for, or you do, but it's not very common." And they're like, "Honestly, if I could go back, I'd do the Coast Guard because you get to do the mission that you train for, and it's fulfilling." I'm like, "Yeah, that makes sense."
Yeah, I know pilots. It's weird with combat because everyone experiences different things. As an infantryman, I've only ever been in training. I've never actually deployed, but um, you know, for example, snipers. I don't know how it works in the police force, but in the army, they may simply be put into an observational role where their job is basically to observe and let, higher ups know enemy movements, things like that. But there's a certain type of trauma that's associated with snipers because imagine if you were looking down a scope for 2 or 3 days, you're watching this house, you painted the target, and you're watching this guy with his family, and you're not necessarily getting to know him, but you're there for 2 or 3 days, and you're just watching this guy. You're seeing him interact with his family. If he slaps them, he hits them, whatever, then like, okay, cool. That makes you feel good about what you're going to be required to do in the future. However, if, that guy seems to be a decent family man with just some crazy religious beliefs, and then, the order comes down the pipe, 8, take the shot. You got to take the shot. But I mean, then just coping with the fact that this dude that you've been watching for 2 or 3 days, you executed, that is particularly difficult for someone in that position versus an Air Force pilot that maybe he didn't get down to the ground and, apply that support that was needed for that ground element, in a timely manner, due to whatever reason, maybe it was completely out of his control. and he wasn't able to respond in time. Maybe you could probably relate with that as a police officer, kind of arriving a little too late to a scene. That might be similar to what Air Force pilots experience whenever they arrive a little too late to apply that necessary support to that ground element, and then that ground element experiences some very negative consequences. People die, casualties, things like that. It's PTSD is a weird thing in general because it seems like there's different variations of it that are that happen when you're in a different position related to combat. Yeah. Whereas like, you as the guy that's busting that door going in, you wouldn't have you might acquire some kind of PTSD, but you wouldn't acquire the same exact variation of it that maybe a sniper would, so it's weird.
Big doing the sniper work.
Yeah, I think it takes a special person. I don't know how you get involved in that, in the police world, but in the Army, it's a pretty straightforward process, and pretty rigorous pipeline that you got to get through. But
they give us options. I mean, you got to understand they've invested in us for a career, and they need to be able to sustain us for 20 years. The job's not nearly at least the job I've experienced, I would say, is not nearly as even close to that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Maybe someday it will be, or maybe there's something I'll come across, or maybe there's something I've already done that just hasn't affected me yet. But I don't know. I feel like I'm at some point. I'm like, I was looking around, I'm like, am I fucking like a sociopath or something? Because none of this stuff is affecting me. And then it kind of slowly starts to, but you just deal with it in a healthy way.
Yeah, no, I feel like it's probably pretty normal to become used to whatever it is that you're dealing with on a regular basis. I think that's probably a natural trait of humans to try to adapt to whatever their current environment is. I don't think that makes you a sociopath. I think that just makes you human. Like you're just getting used to what you're dealing with. That's your new reality.
Yep.
Yeah. Anyways, I am genuinely interested. How much do you bench torch?
Dude, I don't even max anymore. Well, let's see.
Well, no, I don't max either. Like, what do you do for your 5 rep? Like, if you're doing 5x5s.
See, I weigh 200 pounds. I rep like 215.
Okay, that's pretty respectable weight for 200.
My last, I mean, like with me working out, I lift weights. I have no like definitive goal of like, oh, I need to get fucking more and more and more and more and more weight. As long as I can bench more than my body weight and I can squat. So let's see. I squat like 300 pounds 2 days ago. I think my max would probably be around 380 right now.
Okay, so if you squat 300, that's like for your 5x5?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's pretty good. That's more than I do. I usually go, right now I'm working on 275. I feel like I could go up a little bit, but I'm really trying to work on the form there. Make sure it's solid.
Well, and I'm nowhere close to what I was in like high school football. Like my max was 400, and I think my max bench was like, I mean, I've never had good upper body. I think my max bench was like 230 or something like that. But
what about deadlift?
I don't deadlift anymore.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I just don't like. I'll power clean sometimes, but I just power clean 135, like just reps,
Well, no, and honestly, weightlifting isn't necessarily the most practical pursuits that you could engage in if you're trying to look for more practical fitness, I guess. Deadlifting 700 doesn't really matter.
And that's what I do. That's why I bench this weight. I'll just change up the amount of reps I do. Sometimes I'll go like a little bit lighter with a ton of reps. Sometimes I'll go a little bit heavier. But yeah, I just like the amount of weight that I use has pretty much stayed consistent for the last year and a half. I haven't really gone up at all.
Yeah. Bench is really hard for me to go up. My deadlifts has been doing pretty good. I'm at 315 for deadlift, but it took me a while. I got up to 315 in Latvia, but I didn't really feel like I had a good form with it, so I bumped it down to 225 once I got out. Worked with that for a while, and slowly kind of got back up to 315. And now I think I do 315 with pretty good form, but I'm not quite at the point where I'm ready to bump the weight. I have to probably get a few more months in
Yeah.
with
Did
315 before I bump it up.
we deadlift a lot in football, but it was like back. I mean, that was like 8 years ago.
You do any martial arts?
Just jujitsu, but I don't go very often, to be honest.
Now
Like
the
we do our training 4 times a year, which is okay. I mean, it's like it's gonna get you somewhere. If you don't know anything, you're gonna be a lot better.
yeah, yeah.
You can survive, sort of, but yeah, jujitsu is pretty necessary. Anything that has to do with fighting on the ground, like when I know how to throw a punch, I've done a little bit of boxing, a little bit of kickboxing,
Yeah.
but like tools until you can't use them, and then fight, and every fight ends up on the ground anyway. So as long as you can handle yourself on the ground, I've never done judo, and I'm kind of interested in that.
Yeah, I feel like if you're gonna do something though, jujitsu is probably good. However, jujitsu does require you to get on the ground a lot, and I could totally get you wanting to do judo because you just throw people basically.
Well, I really want to do Muay Thai. I think that's
That's
one of the
pretty
most
brutal though. Yeah,
that with jujitsu is probably the most practical, at least in my eyes. And I'm not a huge martial arts expert. I'm sure like there's something better, but I think Muay Thai is realistic because like everybody
yeah,
did like the karate classes or like taekwondo when you're a kid, and like it's good like discipline building as a child and like gives you somewhat of an idea on like how to throw a punch. But I feel like a taekwondo or karate like expert would just get their face pummeled by a Muay Thai guy. You know what I mean?
yeah. Especially with like taekwondo. I used to have a neighbor that was a black belt, and he was convinced that his sensei could kill him by tapping on his chest 3 times in different spots. So there's like a bunch of voodoo in some of the martial arts, but I feel like with jujitsu, and like you said, Muay Thai, I feel like they get away from a lot of the voodoo and just focus on the practical. And yeah, I would agree. Muay Thai and jujitsu is probably a pretty good start. You're definitely not going to be worse off by knowing it.
No. And so like police use Archon, which is good. It's mixes of judo and jujitsu. They throw like there's some strikes in there, but the problem with it is it's like everything ends in the person getting put in handcuffs, which isn't a bad thing. It's just like okay, if the situation doesn't play out like this, like then what are you gonna do? And some people just they don't have a full expectation or like a full game plan. If you're in this position in this way, like how are you going to get out of this and get yourself a position of advantage, or how are you going to maintain this? If you go through the whole course and like when we went through the academy, we did like 4 months of it every day for 5-day weeks, and you get super proficient, and you're like all right, ready, go, and you just wrestle. Like they effectively put you in a ring, everybody watches you, and you either get your ass beat or you win. So that's cool because it's like realistic, and you get some guys that wrestled in high school that are just better than you, so they'll teach you some stuff that isn't really in the doctrine.
Well, I mean, I'm not a, expert. I'm not like a black belt or nothing. But I do jujitsu, and that's one thing I've noticed. Wrestlers seem to be a little bit more fluent, I guess, when it comes to jujitsu naturally, right off the rap or right
Yeah,
off the rip.
yeah,
Yeah, because like their specialty, they're already used to controlling the opponent. They're just not used to submitting him. They're used to, putting his shoulders on the ground for X amount of time
right.
and then winning. Yeah. But they're still used to controlling people. So all they have to really learn is like the submissions and stuff. And yeah.
Yeah, so that's all Archon is. Archon is just jujitsu, except it's like okay, you're on the rear mount, the guy's on his stomach, except his arms are underneath his chest, and you need to get them behind his back. Like, what do you do to make that happen? Because that's not something that's ever taught. Like, no one gives a fuck if the dude's arms are underneath his belly or behind his back, but for us, it does. So there's techniques that they teach us to do stuff that applies to our world, but not necessarily to everybody
Yeah.
else.
I remember getting taught when I was 16, like a disarm method where basically it's like pinkies to the wrist, thumbs on the top of the palm, I guess. Not the palm, but like the knuckle side. You put your thumbs there, and then you can basically bend that hand back towards the person, and you can choose what you want to do. If you want to push that hand in the direction of their thumb, they're going to go to the ground. You could break their arm, etc. Or if you push in the opposite direction to their pinky, you could rotate them around and, shove that hand where you would need it to slap a cuff on, and then just try to fish for that other hand.
Yeah.
But yeah. But
Well, that here's the thing though. Like you see a lot of videos, dudes pull out the cuffs and then the fight starts, which is completely backwards. You get hands on the guy, and if he's chill, put the cuffs on. If he's not, you fight him until he's at the point where he's either giving up or you can control him to get the cuffs on. Don't ever introduce that tool until you know for a fact you can get him on.
Yeah.
But yeah, they teach us like disarming and I don't know, there's a bunch of stuff. But
have you ever gambled?
There's a lot of stuff we got to do. Got to get sprayed, got to get tased. Haven't gotten shot with a beanbag. I don't think I want to.
Yeah, don't you have to get like whatever methods you have at your disposal have to be used on you so that you know the effects when you use it on a suspect?
Yeah, except for lethal force.
Yeah, oh well. Yeah.
We carry a taser, we have to know what it feels like to get hit by it, except we carry a gun. We don't have to know what it feels like to get shot by one.
Yeah.
Just ironic.
Yeah. Have you ever gambled?
Gambled?
Yeah. You ever went to like
I went to a casino like 4 months ago, and I got 20s on blackjack 4 hands in a row, except the dealer got blackjack 4 hands in a row. That fucking snake. I lost all my money like instantly. It was so bad.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's how it works. House always wins or whatever.
That was the first time I ever went to a casino.
Yeah, I went on my 18th birthday to a casino with $100, sat down at a poker table, lost it to a bunch of grandmas reading a book while they were playing poker. Yeah.
You got played. They weren't reading the book. That's the poker face.
Yeah, I didn't get it, man. It's like I sat down at a real casino at a real poker table, and these people were reading novels while they're playing like it's like they were so like removed from the fact that they were playing poker. It's like, bro, why are you even here, man? Like you're not even present. But I guess that's just part of the strat. They're just trying to they're trying to focus on the book so they don't reveal what they're thinking or what they have or yeah, those bastards, they got me. Luckily it was just $100 and
because you weren't wearing the sunglasses.
Oh yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Dude, so you have a car, is that right?
Yeah, Chevy Sonic, man, but it's in the dealership right now. Talking about what?
Your gun.
Oh, car. Yeah. Yeah, I do. It's a 45.
Is it the
I like it. Is it the what?
Is it the subcompact? Let me see it.
I gotta go grab it. One sec.
And the kind of the dumbest thing I've ever seen. I don't know. Do you understand twist rate and bullet grain?
No.
So the best way to describe it is imagine you were throwing an NFL-sized football. And now imagine the amount of muscle strength and the amount of spin you're going to put on that NFL-sized football. And you're throwing it for hours and hours and hours so that you're perfectly in remembrance on how to do it. And then all of a sudden, as you cock your hand back, that NFL-sized football turns into a Nerf football. That pass is going to go way, way off of course, correct?
Yes.
So that's exactly how twist rate and bullet grain work. And I believe that the original M16 was a 1 in 12 twist with a 55 grain bullet. And that's not what it was optimized for. And then they switched to the 1 in 7 twist and switched to the 62 grain, which was proper. However, all of the tracer rounds are still 55 grain. So So when you shoot your tracer around to kind of figure out where the hell you're shooting, it's the wrong grain bullet. So like it's going to be in the right area, but it's not going to give you an accurate representation as to where your bullets
It's
actually
not precise. Yeah.
But the biggest issue with those original M16s, the gas rings and the extractor. So if you look at a bolt carrier group on a new M16 or AR-15, if you will, it has a, well, I guess we'll start with the gas rings. So the gas rings were not very robust. They're way more robust now. The original ones, you could get like 4,000 rounds out of the gas rings until you had to replace them. And once the gas rings go bad, then the extractor takes a lot of stress. And the extractors on the original ones, and I actually have a bolt carrier that doesn't have this, but nowadays I don't know, did they ever let you take the extractor out of the bolt carrier when you field stripped? I know it's more or less just take the bolt out, remove the bolt from the bolt carrier, and that was it, right?
We can completely break the weapon down and
Okay,
clean
so
it.
you took the
Yeah.
like you took the firing pin out, took the bolt away from the bolt carrier, and then you removed the extractor from the bolt face itself.
I would remove the bolt from the bolt carrier and completely disassemble the bolt, clean it with Q-tips, CLP, and like wipes, and then reassemble the rifle.
So you know that did you have O-ring around the extractor spring?
Are you talking about when you say the spring, are you talking about like the spring that goes back into the buttstock?
No, that'd be the buffer spring. So the extractor spring, the extractor is the thing that wraps around the rim of the cartridge, and that actually flexes to allow when the bolt face drives home and grabs around, it expands slightly to allow the rim or allow the extractor to sit over the rim and then clamp back down onto it. There's a spring there, and that spring that actually controls the tension of the extractor. Fuck, I could just grab one and show you. It has an O-ring on it now, and the O-ring actually absorbed a lot of shock. But back in the day, it didn't have that. So when the gas rings went, then the O-ring, or then when the gas rings went, then the spring on the extractor itself got overstressed, and it just started to cause a ton of problems. Not to mention, I'm sure that there's a bunch of other underlying issues with the original A1s.
Yeah.
With dirt and stuff. But dude, the AK, anybody who tells you it's not an accurate rifle doesn't shoot, because it is absolutely an accurate rifle. It is not as accurate as an M16 or an AR-15, if you will. However, it is 100% an accurate rifle. If you can, like, pretty much with an AK, and this is the same with an M16, if you can see it, you can kill the fuck out of it.
Yeah. Well, and like you're not gonna, as a citizen, you're not really gonna be killing things at range. I mean, even probably as a cop, like you're probably most of the time dealing with threats very close. So like it doesn't really matter what the accuracy is at 300 meters because you're not shooting at 300 meters.
Not at all. I've like we've dicked around at the range too. This is way outside the practical accuracy of an AK, but shooting 700 meters and hitting steel with it consistently, not like accurately, but like a couple hit in front, a couple hit behind, right, left, and then get a couple pings on the steel. And my buddy, he grabs the rifle. He's like, "Hey man, what's your holdover for that?" I'm like, "It's the fucking cloud above the hill that we're shooting at. Put the sights there, and you'll hit the
Well, I'll tell you, man. You were in the Milsim group on Xbox and stuff, so you met Max. He would call it intimidation or deception, but basically, like a common infantry tactic is, you have you have one element, you break it into two. One's the maneuver, one's the support. One is shooting at the enemy to kind of keep their heads down, but not necessarily trying to kill them. Just like, I mean, if they kill them, great, but like they're also just trying to like keep them disoriented, confused, and their heads down while the maneuver element closes in. And we'll actually shift fire. Like you've seen in Milsim, where we're not even aiming at the target, we're completely shifted off target, but we're still trying to maintain that illusion that the rounds are being shot at the target so that they keep their heads down while the maneuver element closes in. But I don't think you could really do that as a police force because you have so many innocents involved that
No, there is zero suppression fire, and actually, I have a pretty funny story about that. But your is attached to every bullet that comes out of your gun. You're accountable for every round. There is no suppression fire, so you got to do different tactics.
Yeah, very different. Yeah.
I mean, it sucks because like you get these military dudes that are like, fuck, like we could win this. It's like, sorry, man, we're like, we just can't. You can't risk it. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
so during the Rodney King riots in the 90s in Los Angeles, California governor, I can't remember who it was at the time. Anyways, he activated the National Guard to help with crowd control. And it turned out it was a bunch of Marines that they activated. I think it was reservists or maybe it was active Marines that they just brought there. It was the best option for them. So that a
Yeah.
bunch of Marine infantrymen, whether they're reservists or not, rolling around. They paired up a fire team with a cop on each corner. So you got a fire team of Marines with, I think they were using saws at the time, maybe M60 still up, but fire team Marine.
Yeah.
They're all kitted out to go to war. And this cop is like, all right, guys, I'm gonna go to that corner, cover me. And the Marines are like, all right, sweet. So he starts to go to the other side of the street, and the Marines just lay down suppressive fire into like a war. And he's like, fucking, what are you doing, bro? It's like, cover me with something different in police lingo.
Yeah. That's crazy, man. Because like I guess when we swear in, we do technically swear in for domestic and foreign threats, but I don't think I'm pretty sure at least nowadays there's like some very strict laws regarding military use inside the country.
Yeah, well, and I think the intention is like emergency only. The governor can only activate, like, national military cannot be used. It's only state militia, with, well, not militia, but
Or
state
National Guard.
militia people.
Yeah.
National Guard, essentially,
Yeah.
where their commander in chief is the governor, and it's like I think their job legitimately is crowd control. I don't know. Like I think you'd probably know better than I. Like at what point during a National Guard activation are they like, all right, start capping motherfuckers? Like if
It's
they get shot,
it's
then they're-
extremely restricted. They would probably it would have to be the most extreme and dire of circumstances before they would ever authorize that. Even a lot of times where you see National Guard activated to provide security, they don't actually have any rounds inside of their magazines. Or if they do, they don't have any magazines inside the rifle, but the intimidation is still there because of ignorance on the part of the civilian populace that's interacted with by the National Guard, because they don't understand that like a magazine is what has bullets and a gun can't shoot without bullet. You know what I mean? Like it's just like basic shit, but like the National Guard's guys still have a rifle and they may have a mag in, but they don't even have rounds in the mag, just to kind of provide that intimidation. But no, I've had some buddies, National Guard, and they tell me like they mainly get activated for hurricanes and stuff, you know. So,
you ever seen Battle LA, like the new one?
is it a show?
No, the movie Battle Los Angeles.
No, the only police officer movie I've seen was one that me and my friend Ephraim, who's been on this podcast, we watched it. It was called like The Last Watch, maybe.
End of watch.
End of Watch, dude. We swore we were gonna become police officers after watching that movie at 16, bro. That was like the most awesome movie ever.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. That's probably one of the most realistic cop movies for sure. My favorite cop movie is White Chicks.
I love White Chicks. Yeah.
Well, it's kind of an FBI movie, but I don't know. I like to think out of the box. I think Let's Be Cops is super funny though.
Yeah.
Dude, it's like they're not even cops. They're impersonating police officers. They start solving crime, and then he promotes himself to detective. It's so fucking funny, dude.
What do you think about these cats out there that go on like Amazon police lights and throw it on their car? They like throw a little red and blue light in their windshield or whatever, and they just like pull people over.
It's the same thing with Stolen Valor, dude. It's just mental health. People trying to get attention, feel good about themselves.
Have you ever seen that though? Like someone like pulls someone over that's not a cop?
What was that?
Have you ever seen that though? Like in your experience? Like have you ever
No,
seen
I've never seen a police
No?
impersonator. I know it's in like we have code for it, and I've actually seen like the when we close out a call, there's like little categories we can put stuff in, and one of them is like police impersonation, which I think is kind of funny.
Yeah.
Never gotten to use it though.
Huh.
But The problem is one of these days, because that stuff's always going to happen. It always will. But one of these days, somebody's going to pull over the wrong guy, and they're going to get shot in the face.
Yeah. Yeah. Honestly, yeah.
It's the most dangerous thing we do in our job, and these people they're wanting to do it too, which okay, but you got to understand the risk, man. Like when you're breaking the law too, the risk behind you stopping a car is just so gigantic
Yeah.
that I could never even.
It's
feasibly-
something you guys trained for and things that you've been trained on that have been learned from years and years and years of hard lessons. And then some dude that doesn't know anything just thinks he's gonna willy-nilly just pull over people and not have any issues.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Someone's gonna get fucked. Someone's gonna have a real bad day. Put it that way.
Well, I think I'm probably gonna wrap this up. But just a couple of closing questions here. If you had to rename the police force, what would you name it? If you could name it anything in the world and everyone had to accept it.
Instead of calling it police.
Yeah.
Fuck. I have no idea, dude. What would I call the police if I couldn't call them the police?
I was hoping something really dumb.
I don't know, like the Starship Troopers.
All right, I'll accept that. So,
That'd be kind of cool.
well,
Great movie.
so before we wrap it up, on behalf of the Starship Troopers, you got anything you'd like to put out there in case this video ever does blow up?
Just be kind, love each other, try to be as good a citizen as you can. We're out here to help you. We're not your enemy. And if you ever feel like you need us, call us.
All right. And then I'll tag onto that airborne. But I'll go ahead and wrap it up here. Thanks for listening, people. And Torch is a good dude. I hope you gained a little bit of insight into police, if you listen to this. And and Torch, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, bro.